friends.
Welcome to Heavy Metal
History.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of Heavy Metal History, the podcast. I'm your host, Dustin, and joining me all the way in Australia is Matt.
Yeah, g'day, everyone.
See, I tried singing that this time, but very badly. My intros are always awkward, and that's kind of our charm, I think. You know?
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, we haven't been doing this for 1,000 hours, and when they say do something for 1,000 hours and you get good,
Yeah,
well, we're on hour
50.
hour 53 almost. Yeah, so
Yeah, we're somewhere around there.
yeah, we're doing good.
I got my deep drinking voice on tonight. I've been drinking a little bit. I've been out doing some things, but tonight we're gonna get into March of 1998. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning here for me. What time is it there for you, Matt?
It's 8:15 at night here on a Saturday, and I haven't had one drop of alcohol all night.
As opposed to the opposite time we recorded with that special.
Did we release that one?
No, we didn't put that one out. That's our
Oh.
darkness episode. That if we ever really need to put out an episode, that will be the one.
Jesus Christ, what was I thinking? Anyway, that's if it ever comes out, I'll explain more. But that was a dark time in everyone's lives.
It was fun and it was funny, and I'm gonna keep it. So if it ever gets out there, it will be out there. But for now, we're in March of 1998. If you last heard us, you probably heard our fucking hilarious February 1998, King Diamond Voodoo episode, which I hope you guys enjoyed. Matt, I don't know if you listened to part of it, but I re-recorded all my vocals that we did on that to do a really shitty French accent.
Oh wow, okay. I haven't got around to listening to this yet, but I'm gonna be to make sure I do this tonight.
It gives it an extra kick, man. Let's see. I am talking to you like this very much. Not so much Borat, but there's a little Tommy Wiseau in there too. I will see you soon.
Voodoo House number 1.
Yeah. So, I recorded everything myself after the fact and stitched it all together, and it got released, and you guys heard what you heard. That was fun. I'm not gonna lie, that was fun.
Yeah, that was good.
We have a fuck ton of records on this episode as compared to our last episode where we only had 5-6 records. This is the point in time where you're starting to see not necessarily quality over quantity. I do think that there are 3 or 4 good records in this whole rundown that we're about to do for March, but it's just
yeah,
this is a lot of shit, man, and not all of it's good. There's stuff where you have people branching out and going into new territory. You have legacy bands that have
cemented the status of legacy band.
They've cemented it, but then they went over the cement and then pissed on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we got this week, we have Deeds of Flesh, Inbreeding the Anthropophagi. That's a big word. Classic Christian hardcore, Training for Utopia, Plastic Soul Impalement, Tristania's Widow's Weeds, 2 spelled with the number 2 and a W and an O, Voyeurs, and this is Rob Halford's band post Judas Priest, where he worked with Trent Reznor, which we'll get into when we talk about that record. You have Motorhead.
And also Jordan 5 as well.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're all good. Yeah, dude, there's so many musicians that worked on that record that it's it should be better than it is, but it's also good for what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, getting into the legacy bands that we talked out, we now have Motorhead with their 50 billionth album with Snakebite Love, which is a better album than I think the band gives it credit for, in my opinion. Tankard's Disco Destroyer. Tankard's one of those bands that they're like a German thrash band that they make like joke. They're basically like the German version of Municipal Waste before Municipal Waste, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have Symphony X, Twilight and Olympus. Symphony X, classic power metal band. This is one of their first records. And getting back to another, legacy band here, we have Iron Maiden with Virtual 11. We'll get into that record. Very, very unfortunately. Then we have Rage with the album 13. Lots of Roman numerals on this month of releases. And we're going to be closing it out with Marduk's Nightwing. And I think by the time we get out around to this record, by the end of this episode, we have some thoughts that me and Matt have been wanting to kind of express with the current state of black metal and all of the witch hunt that is going on, culminating with Marduk recently. As far as like when this episode is being recorded, Marduk was the newest, I don't know if that's the right term to use, newest band.
They've been not so much newest, but they've definitely been like a very high profile band. As far as all the ones that have been, had scandals and allegations, and as far as like, I think they're higher up on the kind of the totem pole than say like Tark or even Watain, to be perfectly honest.
I think they're like in league with Watain, in my opinion. So that's why I'm kind of like, shit's getting fucking out of hand. So we're gonna talk about that once we get to the end of this episode. But that's what we got on the docket for today. That's a lot of records. That is also a fucking huge genre gap if you think about it. Like, all these bands are in such different genres. This is where we're like really finally starting to see the spread of genre outside of heavy metal. Like, you got fucking death metal, you have black metal, you have Nawabum, you have thrash metal, you have
You've got Christian hardcore, which is
Christian hardcore. You have fucking power metal. You have. I was trying to figure out what to call two, and I was thinking like along the lines of Godflesh, where it's like that industrial kind of metal, which is fair, but I don't think that's still like a correct term. But I don't know what to call this band. We're only talking about them because Rob Halford's involved, and also John Five. It's ancillary characters to a whole as far as that band's concerned. So I thought it was important to kind of talk about it. So a lot of shit.
But tell you what, man. Let's talk. How about we start and talk about this fucking brutal, just absolutely just balls to the wall death metal album from Deeds of Flesh.
Yes, yeah, we're getting to like brutal death metal now. Like, this is 1998, we're going to get to a record where Cannibal Corpse released Gallery of Suicide eventually, later on in this year, but brutal death metal is becoming a thing at this point, whereas in the mid-90s, brutal death metal wasn't really a thing. You didn't have those deep guttural fucking vocals. You didn't have technical spastic fucking guitar riffs. It was all pretty straightforward brutality.
Pretty kind of stock standard. And the way that you would want to kind of differentiate yourself from that, well, first of all, without being suffocation, is to essentially go down this line.
Yeah, and Suffocation paved the way, I think, for a lot of these bands.
Oh, 100%,
we're going to get to actually talk about a Suffocation record later on in this year for their pretty much final record, quote-unquote, until they got back together. But, so the first record we're going to talk about is Deeds of Flesh, in breeding the Anthropophagi. See, this is the other problem with these fucking bands. They make up these weird names. This is not a real fucking word. It was released March the 1st, 1998. Now, this release date could be wrong. This is one of those times where I'm doing research on something and, like, I cannot find a legit release date for this. And, like, the only thing that's coming out is, like, March the 1st. March the 1st. I'm like, cool. I guess that's the release date then. So, as far as I know, release March 1st, 1998. The band lineup on this record was Jacoby Kingston on bass and vocals, Eric Lindmark on guitar and vocals, so you have like a dual kind of vocal thing going on there, and Brad Palmer on the drums. For guest musicians, you have Maddie Way, ex-Disgorge vocalist, who is on backing vocals. And I mean, nowadays you see Maddie Way in pretty much every fucking brutal death metal band that's out there. You
do.
Yeah,
he's fucking everywhere.
Yeah, no, he's a guest vocalist on fucking everything, or in some kind of brutal death metal band. Like, he is still fucking doing it 20 years later. So, and he's a good vocalist for that reason. Like, he's one of the progenitors of that fucking guttural style that it's so prevalent these days, you know? Like, he was the fucking one of the first ones. So it's cool to see him still around, you know? For production, it was recorded at Moon Studios. It was produced by the band, and Thomas E. Jingle, he was the engineer, and he did some of the effects. And kind of like we said, it was recorded at Moon Studios, which is in Arroyo Grande, California. I think I have been there, not necessarily in that studio, but in Arroyo Grande, California, you know. There's not a lot there, so the fact that this band like kind of went there to record, you know, they're in a small town. A lot of the lyrical concept revolves around, so this is one of those bands that like they have a story concept in their record and the lyrics. And so this one, the concept revolves around the legend of Son Bean, his inbred cave-dwelling family, and the grisly practice of attacking travelers on local roads for food and profit.
Yeah, isn't that like some the Hills Have Eyes shit?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's exactly like the Hills Have Eyes or the Wrong Turn movie series, which is pretty similar. There's a lot of inbreeders killing wary travelers on the road in the South. There's even one that has Henry Rollins in it, Wrong Turn 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, when he was like that time when like whenever someone offered him a movie role, he'd just take it no matter what it was.
Yes.
And no matter what he had to do in order to get that part.
He still does that, actually. Like, pretty much if somebody offers him something, he says yes. Which pretty cool. I mean, you got to admit, like, if somebody's writing a movie and they're like, we want Henry Rollins, and like, he's not really going to say no at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember him like being. Oh, sorry, that's a bit of a tangent. But I remember he was on a few episodes of that show Sons of Anarchy.
Oh yeah, he was like a huge.
He's like a skinhead, and like he had like this like tattoo like across his chest. I'm not going to repeat what it was. You can go find it for yourself. But it's like just seeing that on television. It's like okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah, that was. I gotta admit, he had some balls to fucking pull off that tattoo and to like play that part the way he did. And that's why I respect him, man. Like he knew what he was getting into as far as like the hateful nature of that character. He played it with conviction, and then the way his character went out, like he knew the comeuppance that was going to happen for his character, and like he didn't go out good. He died in a fucking bathroom stall. Like, sorry, spoilers if none of you have seen Sons of Anarchy, but like,
you just spoiled it, mate. Sorry. Yeah, what the hell?
I mean, shit, it's been like what 10 years at this point. Anyways, yeah, we digress a little bit there, but yeah, like this is straight out of a fucking like shitty backwoods horror movie where like inbreeders are killing white people that got stranded on the side of the road. Maybe one black person, who knows? You never know with those horror movies.
Yeah, you know the rule. The black guy's got to go first, then it's the white kids.
Yeah, but sometimes like they don't include a black person to like kind of stray away from that like cliche a little bit. But Wrong Turn 2, like they did the opposite of that, where like the black dude died last. But you know, you got to diverge. Yeah,
you got your formula. Change it up.
So, for this record, it's all about fucking inbreeders that fucking kill people on local roads, presumably in the South. You know, the band kind of, at this point, they started to adopt their, like, known kind of dense, atonal, percussive death metal style. And this was even though they had lost their co-founder, Joey Hazlett, prior to the session of recording this album. And it's a lot more lyrically mature than Trading Pieces, which was prior to this. And it had a wider variety of like really gruesome subject matter. And not all of it was dedicated to like infamous serial murders, which is what a lot of their previous records and like songs were predicated on, is all like serial killer kind of shit. And it's the only Deeds of Flesh record to feature the percussive talent of Brad Palmer, who briefly, he replaced Joey Hazlett in between the first and third album. So, you know, Joey came back eventually, and it was, I mean, you know, drummers, especially in death metal, if you can blast and you can double kick, like,
you're in.
Yeah, you're gonna be a revolving door. Like you don't have to worry about too much shit there. So, you know, first and third album, you lose the drummer, he comes back, big deal. You know, I wish I could say that his playing was an asset to the band, which I mean, like, it is in some respects, but like, you know, the band was just starting out. They couldn't have known how good of a drummer he was gonna be to where he is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, man. Like when you're a band, like trying to get your footing, and you have like all these members in your band, and you don't know who, like, how can I word this? So you
don't know who the guy's gonna be.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Thank you. You don't know who that one guy's gonna be. Like, for example, you're Monstrosity. You're fucking starting out this fucking death metal band. Your guy is Corpse Grinder, but you don't know that. You do 2 albums with him, and then he gets pegged being fucking, you know, Cannibal Corpse. And then what happens to Monstrosity? Nothing. They do one other album with a different vocalist, and then that's it. Corpse Grinder was the guy. And I mean, like, I'm not saying Joey Hazlett was the guy in this band, because, like, he's not, to be fair. Like, the guitar players are, like, kind of the shining star.
Really the backbone of this album is its guitar playing.
Yes. Dude, like, the technicality on this record is, like, fucking insane. Like, especially for 1998, like, you're not hearing, like, sick fucking brutal death metal like like this. The only band I can like kind of compare them to, and this is a band that came after them, is like fucking Brain Drill or Spawn of Possession, you know, like that kind of fucking, or Cephalic Carnage. And like, to be fair, Cephalic Carnage, they were around the same time as this band, so it's like it's in that same vein. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
no, I really do. Especially Spawn and Possession. I really do see the similarities between, you know, this and that. So but I was actually pleasantly surprised with this album. I'd never really heard of this band before. Before he said, "Hey, we're doing an episode on it," put it in and at work one day, and I was like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I needed to listen to."
Yeah, and I mean, you got to imagine too, for like 1998, man, like it stands out. Like even like knowing what is coming for the rest of this year, like this is one of those records that, like, you know, we always talk about, like, does it hold up for 20 years? I don't think it holds up for 20 years, but in terms of this whole year, like, it stands out above all the other records that came out in 1998 for its technicality, its brutality, its originality. It's got the three things that you need for a band to really, like, make their thing. And like Deeds of Flesh is still fucking going to this day. I mean,
yeah, I feel like this band's like almost criminally so especially this album is basically critically underrated.
Yes, I would agree with that 100%. Like it's very underrated, especially for its time. No, I feel like most brutal death metal bands like rip off this band. I mean, pretty much to this day, you know. Like, sure, there were a couple bands before them. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like they're the first one. Like, you know, I know we skipped a couple years here, but they were one of the first ones that like kind of brought it a little bit more into the mainstream, if that makes sense. You know, I know we're talking about like a niche genre here, but like mainstream metal, like technical brutal death metal, like wasn't really a thing until this band. They refined it to a point where it was like, yo, we all gotta step up our game. But
yeah, and exactly, and the fact that you're able to hear everything that's going on as well really is a testament to actually the band producing this record themselves. So they knew the sound, and it wasn't so much it made it accessible to the mainstream, but it just made it accessible enough.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that they knew the sound that they were onto as well. Like they kind of like, they were like, yo, like we're not sounding a lot like other bands that are out right now. Like we're not sounding like Morbid Angel. We're not sounding like fucking
like Deicide or anything like that. Yeah.
Like we got our own thing here, so we need to figure out how to make it sound like us. And like the production, like you were saying, it speaks to that. So
yeah, and then the fact they're able to get that sound without having to compromise, anything about originality or even just technicality or even brutality, as I said before, is that's something.
Yeah, and I know I said this earlier, but I don't think it holds up for 20 years, considering like what is coming out now as far as like brutal death metal and technical brutal death metal. Like the bands that are coming out now are so far beyond Deeds of Flesh. It's kind of insane.
Oh yeah,
but for its time,
this would have been the shit for its time.
Yeah, dude, I would have been flipping the fuck out on this record if I was like knowing what death metal was in 1998. I would have been like, yup, this is it. This is the thing. Everybody needs to fucking listen to this. Like, yeah, it's a good record. But
yeah,
I mean, this is the thing. It's it's a little dated, like I said, and the band paved the way for a lot of other bands, and I think that they should get their credit for that, and people should listen to that record based on that fact alone. So if you've never heard of Deeds of Flesh or heard this record, don't get
do yourself a favor.
Yeah, do yourself a favor, listen to this record. But like they also have better records than this. That's the thing, is like this band also gets better. That's the other thing I didn't really clarify, is the band gets better. Like this is just a fucking blueprint for how much better they get. Like they are a fantastic fucking band, man. Like I don't think they're currently like doing anything right now, but I mean, even if they weren't, I know the few records that like came after this where they really like solidified their sound, where it's just like, yeah, this band is like nothing to fuck with.
Yeah.
And one last little fact about this album before we move on. The artist known as John Zig, he's Austin, Texas based. He's a tattoo artist. He did the artwork for the cover. It's a pretty fucked up and weird cover, about what you would expect for a brutal death metal band, I guess. Pretty fucking like, it's got like weird creatures on it and shit like that, and yeah,
I'm just bringing up a copy of it now. If you just bear with me one moment. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah, that is some horrifying stuff. So we have here, it's like a bunch of like ghouls. They're eating something in the background, while in the foreground there's another ghoul like that's worried. Yeah. It has like razor sharp teeth. Yeah, this is like nightmare fuel.
Yeah, it's like he didn't want to be part of the pack, but the rest of them are like, give me that meat.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And he's like, no, I just wanted to go out and have fun with friends. Oh, no. What's this?
Yeah, so unfortunately the band hasn't put out a record since 2013. Portals to Canaan, but I mean, dude, I remember listening to that record, and they did a Gorguts cover on that record.
Oh yeah,
dude, that record fucking kills, man. I really hope they put out something soon, or I mean, they're still active technically, but yeah, man, these guys are like the progenitors of technical brutal death metal. One of, like, I'm not saying they are the one, but they're one of. And I think that says a lot about the band. So I guess that kind of wraps up this record. But what's your opinion, Matt, on like the 20 years thing? Like, do you think it holds up, or?
It doesn't hold up for 20 years, but at the same thing, there's a lot of good music that doesn't hold up that you can go back and listen to. So it's like sometimes when you're in the mood and you want to listen, like, I don't know, like Run DMC, for example. Now, like, Run DMC does not hold up for however long it's been out, but, like, if you can put on a few of their songs, like, it's good and it's fun.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what this record is. Now, no way are they, like, fucking, Run DMC, like, I'm comparing them to that, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you mean. If you're in the right mood and, like, you want to listen a little bit older, you don't give a fuck what it sounds like, it's like, this is it. This is what I want to listen to. So yeah, I get it. By the way, listeners and Matt, I can see a beautiful sunset outside my window.
Exactly. He's recording this as the sun goes up.
Yeah,
so
the sun is coming
brutal.
up. The birds are chirping. A new day dawns on heavy metal history. All right. So with that, we're going to get into the next record here. Trading for Utopia, Plastic Soul Impalement. It was released March the 3rd of 1998. The lineup on this record, you're going to know a couple of these guys. You have Ryan Clark on vocals and guitar between 1996 and 2000. You have Don Clark on guitar between 1996 and 2000. And now both those guys are in Demon Hunter, the other Christian Metalcore, whatever you want to call them,
relatively popular band.
Yeah, they're pretty huge for what they are. I think Don or Ryan, I forget which one, has a very successful graphic design / album art company. Like, they do tons of album art for a ton of bands, including Demon Hunter. I forget which brother it is, but very, very successful in what they do, and that's fucking awesome. You have Steve Saxby on the bass guitar. He is currently with the band Out of Place. And Morley Boyer on drums. He played on An Angle. I presume that means the song An Angle.
No. An Angle was an indie rock band from Sacramento, California.
All right, yeah. Sometimes when you get this information, it's just like, the way they word shit is like, I think I know what you mean there, but I'm not, I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
So, this right here is classic Christian hardcore. I don't know any other way to fucking like phrase it or talk about it. Like, we're not so much trying to go into the religion aspect of the band or the members or the music. That's ancillary to everything else.
It's either here nor there.
Yeah, it obviously, like, these guys are faithful or they're into religion, and I mean that goes without saying because they did Demon Hunter. It's in the same genre, the same thing. They love God and Jesus and all that. That's cool. But if you look when this album was released in 1998, there was no such thing as a Christian metal scene. outside of Stryper. You know, Stryper was like the only fucking huge Christian metal band that people knew. And to kind of take Christianity values and to put that and infuse it with hardcore, which is almost the antithesis of hardcore if you really think about it. Like, hardcore is all about being fucking tough and mean and angry. Christianity is not
and
like
wearing
that
shorts
at all.
with hoodies.
Yeah, you know, you're gonna fucking like beat somebody down. You're straight edge. You're not, you know, the only thing those two things that have in common, not doing drugs and alcohol. Like that's like where hardcore Christianity meet. Like fucking.
And also making sure that everyone else knows that you don't do drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, and no sex. No.
Oh yeah, no sex.
No premarital. What is sex? I don't know what that is. Never seen it, never heard of it. It's a bad thing. Yeah, so anyways, that's outside of those things, like those two, the genre and the belief have like presumably no place not only in metal but in hardcore. And you know, actually, you know, later on in this year we're going to be talking about an X-Toll record, which is like Christian black metal, and that's like a fucking mind explosion in itself when you think about black metal and Christianity put together. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, and I remember we were talking about that on that band from Indonesia. I can't remember what it is, but that's
Kakal.
a different thing.
Yeah, they were like really into like Hinduism or Buddhism or something else besides. They were religious basically, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. So this record was recorded and mixed at El Dorado Recording Studio in Burbank, California. So this band like was one of the first bands that signed with Tooth and Nail Records and was later moved to Solid State Records. They're basically the Tooth and Nail imprint that promotes Christian heavy metal music. I don't know about you, Matt, but for me, kind of when I was like not really getting into metal. I was already into metal, but the people around me that were getting into metal, the Christian hardcore and metal scene was fucking huge. And any band that was out on Solid State, all of my friends was into. So that includes bands like Norma Jean, Agony Scene, He Is Legend, like I could go on, and Demon Hunter. I can go on and on and on.
Yeah, that it wasn't so much for me. It was mainly things were probably more mainstream than that, and then probably about when I was about 17 or so, those bands start becoming popular out here.
Okay.
Because like we were at the time we were basically like 3 years behind you guys as far as like what the trends were and what everything like what you people were listening to in like 2005. We only just got in like 2007, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, even for this, like, this record came out in 1998, so, like, I wouldn't have even been in high school yet. Like, this was, like, for me, like, all those bands that I just mentioned were coming out for when I was in high school, which was, like, 2001 through 2005. You know, that was, like, a good 4-year span of music. But literally everybody knew, like, if it was a band that was out on Solid State, like you had an automatic sale from that person. You know what I mean? Like, that's how big the Christian metalcore scene or metal Christian scene was, period. Like, given I grew up in the South, so it's like,
yeah, that's a whole different kettle of thing too. I mean, even where I was, there was no like Christian anything, let alone like even really just like rock music outside of like AC/DC.
Yeah,
which was popular until like say Parkway Drive came out.
Oh yeah, and that's a huge gap.
So that's basically where it all is. Yeah,
it's a weird thing when you like see those gaps in music like that. So like seeing when this record came out in '98, it was just like I couldn't believe how ahead of its time it was. To be honest, like I've never heard anything like this in 1998. Like, considering when I heard bands like this, it was in 2005. You know?
Yeah.
So that's a good chunk of time where like I didn't know this band existed, and like even until now when like I was doing research for this, I was like, wait, who is this band? Wait, you're telling me dudes from Demon Hunter were in this band? Like, what the fuck? And they were kids. Like, they were all kids when they were doing this fucking band. And I mean, they were all in the band until the year 2000, which was like a little bit before I was in high school. So I would have been like 8th grade. You know, this band subsequently became popular in the Christian metal scene during its active years, you know, even though the music wasn't specifically religious. And I think that's a fair thing to point out. Like, they definitely had songs that were relegated to themes of Christianity and religion, and the members are religious, but I think the overall music, you could say, wasn't religious, and I think that's a fair thing to point out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like almost like an August Burns Red thing or a Devil Wears Prada. It's well, I don't know about that, but like August Burns Red, you'll know they're Christians, but it never really came across.
Yeah.
Well, at least not for me, anyway.
No. Same here. I was in. That's another band that was like initially on one of those Christian labels. And same thing. They were like, we're a Christian band, but like you don't hear it in their lyrics all the time. Like, don't get me wrong, they have some songs where like it's about that stuff, but like definitely not in the music. The music is a whole different entity from the lyrics and the band. Like, it's a lot more brutal. And I guess, for lack of a better word, hardcore.
Yeah, but also keep in mind it came out 10 years. But they basically got big, like, 10 years after this?
Yes.
So music, and especially like hardcore metal, would have drastically changed.
Yeah.
From them to now. So, I mean, even just getting a bit back more on this record and actual kind of more information about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they morphed from like a... You know, they were like a straight up hardcore band on like the previous EP. But like with this first full length, man, they turned out to be like this like really calculated, chaos induced metalcore platter. And they even had elements of like a little bit of dark industrial thrown in there. You know, like we're going to talk about that 2 record with like
Reznor and all that.
Yeah, Halford. Jesus, I don't know why I was blanking on his name. It's early. I haven't slept. That's why. You know, so like this is like industrial is like a weirdly big thing in like 1998. That's the one like through line that I've noticed with like a lot of these records is like how much industrial has like kind of seeped its way into like at least one record on every fucking band's discography. Every band. Doesn't fucking matter what band you are. Industrial finds its way in there somewhere. And this for this fucking Christian metalcore, hardcore band, whatever you want to call them, their first full length, they threw in that little bit of industrial, you know, and that gave it a little bit more distinctive flavor, man, from the usual glut of like hardcore and screamo that was kind of passing as like metal at the time. So, I mean, I don't want to say it was ahead of its time, because it was more a product of its time. But on the same kind of note, it kind of was ahead of its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the uneducated, not to call anyone who doesn't think this is like a fucking rube or a pleb, but the uneducated thing is to say it was. But then if you go a little bit deeper, if you actually were a part of it and actually kind of, you know, had your ear to the ground, it was like, yeah, this is where everything was going, and it just happened to, you know, catch the same wave.
Yeah, they caught it, man. They caught that fucking wave. They culminated. They refined their sound from the EP. They knew what they were trying to go for, and they put it on this record. Now, the production on this record is bad.
Yeah,
the record doesn't sound good
at
all.
It does not.
Yeah, this thing definitely sounds like a product of its time. Like, it's recorded really bad. It sounds like a MySpace demo. Even though MySpace wasn't around yet, like it definitely sounds.
It gave the groundwork for the MySpace demos.
Yeah, there you go. They paved the way for the MySpace demos. So, you know, I even with that fault of like how it sounds, I can still appreciate the fuck out of it, because knowing that this band was like kids at this point in time and they put a lot of work into this band, it comes across even though it doesn't sound good. You know, you can still feel like the heart of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, this would have been like to see kind of these guys play. I could basically imagine they would have been like basically like 4 or 5 show, 4 or 5 band kind of gig. There would have been the second band up, and like they would have gone hard for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, they were the band that wanted you to mosh for Jesus, basically.
yeah. I don't know if they would have like, you know, who they basically would have supported, but this is definitely like they're supporting someone, and it's a good like fucking 20-minute kind of mosh.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I can't think of like where this band would have ever played or who they would have played with at this point in time. Like, there were no big Christian bands. They definitely wouldn't have been headlining anything. Like, and if they were, like, who the fuck made that decision? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a year after this, I think, or I'll say even not even a year, but a couple of months after this, they actually did a split EP with Zao. So.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Under Oath and Zao like probably were the only other bands that I could see them fucking touring or playing shows with, and that's it. But yeah. I mean, yeah, we're eventually gonna be talking about Zao's "Where Blood and Fire Bring Rest." I mean, seminal album for sure. So if you think about like Christian metalcore, like that's probably like the top fucking album right there. But yeah, so you know, this band and this album a little bit ahead of its time. It doesn't sound good recorded. Don Clark, the guitar player, he said that training for Utopia originally began with musician Rob Denler as its lead vocalist. But Ryan Clark, his brother, replaced Denler before the band even recorded its first demo. So, I mean, at that point, Denler wasn't really in the band, if you think about it that way, because not only did he record the fucking EP or demo, but he also recorded the EP and the full length, which makes him more of a original member than Denler.
Yeah, true. But any kind of final thoughts on this?
You know,
album here. 1
year before this record, Hatebreed put out. Not Perseverance, fucking Satisfaction is the Death of Desire.
Yeah.
And I think this album took a lot of, I don't want to say they stole things from that record, but they took a lot of liberties with how that record sounded, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a couple of bangers on here, but
yeah, you know, that's the thing, is there's good songs on this record. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the record sucks, but you can tell like with the other bands that were kind of cropping up around them in terms of like hardcore, they weren't really like breaking the mold at this point. They were kind of like going with the flow, if anything else. But
yeah,
the fact that they were Christian made them stand out. Yeah. I mean that about sums them up and this record up. So, I don't think it holds up for 20 years. I will say that at all. If this came out now, I'd be fucking laughing my ass off, being like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah, this would almost be like throwback shit. But I wouldn't have been into it when it came out. Probably wouldn't have been into it 10 years from now. I'd only be into it now, I'd really be into it now, just kind of looking back on everything.
I probably would have been into it when it came out, to be honest. This was kind of right up my alley. I was into like metalcore and like hardcore, like Hatebreed, and definitely like as much as like I wasn't like listening to the same thing as my peers with like the Tooth and Nail and like Solid State scene, I still was kind of like on those bands too, where like they would, like I was listening to like Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth, but for every band that I was listening to like that, they were like, like Norma Jean and Atreyu and He Is Legend and Showbread, and like I'd be like, okay, I'll check this band out just because like I had to, but it didn't mean I liked it or wanted to like it. So I think that I still would have checked this band out if I knew they were on Solid State and were still around at that point in time when I was like into those bands. So I probably would have liked it when it came out, but now I would fucking laugh at this so hard. I'd be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, stop. Just don't. Please don't do what you're doing.
Okay.
Do you want to pause for here for now? And
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to pause for here and then basically have a word from the sponsor and then come right back.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. We'll pick up tomorrow. All right, so the next record we're going to be talking about, guys, Tristania, Widow's Weeds. It was released March 9th, 1998. The lineup on this record was Vibeke Steen on vocals and the choir, Morten Veland, harsh vocals, guitars, and choir, Anders H. Heidel, guitars and choir, Rune Osterhus, he was the bass player. You have Einar Moen, who did the synth and a lot of the programming, and Kenneth Olsen, drums and also part of the choir. So as you can see from this lineup, there's a huge choir involved, and that leads us into the session members for this band. You have Austin Burgoy, who did clean vocals on Angelor. He is also in the choir. Pete Johansson did the violin. And like we said earlier, Hild Marita Herrickstad and Hild Baumann are all in the choir. Very epic in scope this band is.
Yeah, exactly. And if this is your kind of thing, this is your thing. And then if it isn't, well, this isn't going to win. This album won't win you over.
No. This is one of those things where it's a very niche yet broad stroke of metal. They try to put a bunch of different aspects of music, not just heavy metal, into this band. You know, it's symphonic, there's death metal, there's doom metal, it's got clean vocals and gothic metal, so it's a hodgepodge in a good way of different styles.
It's very European.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. It invokes like a lot of classical music too. You know, if it wasn't for, I guess, like the death metal growls, you know, a lot of this stuff you could seemingly envision being played in ancient times, or, you know, not ancient, but like, you know, like the days of Bach.
But basically the time, like, yeah, exactly, yeah, like the times of almost like your Renaissance, kind of further upwards. But yeah, I mean, listening to this album, I mean, do you kind of really get the kind of the grand sense and scope of it all, or?
I do think it does have a very grand sense to it. It's very epic and operatic, and, you know, I think the choir gives it like a little added feel of that scale too. You know, when you have a choir, man, that adds like a whole nother layer to not just heavy metal, but like music in general. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that live Dimmu Borgir DVD.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. Them adding that choir just like took all their songs up to the next level. So this is kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess a little bit more about this album. They recorded it between November and December of 1997 at Sound Suite Studio in France. And, you know, I guess the main thing you can kind of say about this band is they are kind of like a gothic metal band. And it's always a very tricky subgenre of heavy metal, you know, especially in terms of originality, because it can bore you in like a blink of an eye. But, you know, every now and then you have bands that kind of break the mold, and Tristania was one of those bands that kind of broke that barrier of heavy music. you know. They had a self-titled EP that came out in 1997, and around this time, I mean, it was just time for them to do a full-length album. And, you know, Widow's Weeds, it's not really considered like a full gothic metal album because it, like we were saying, it does contain elements of other subgenres. You know, it's got symphonic, death, doom metal, and that's kind of why this album is a little bit difficult to understand if you think about that. You know?
Yeah, it's almost all over the place.
Yeah,
it's there's still some consistency to it, and there's still like a bit of your theme to it. But yeah, this isn't like something, if you wanted to show someone what gothic metal is, you wouldn't want to sit them down with this, just because it's too I wouldn't say chaotic, but it's kind of just very kind of scatterbrained, very just like, well, yeah, it's really just all over the place.
It's a blueprint. You know, they're really, since this is their first album, you know, like they have growing to do as a band. So you can see where they're really trying to go with the music they're making, what they've brought together into this band, and you know, they've taken a chance and they're thinking a little bit outside the box in terms of like what gothic metal is and can be. You know, to me, maybe minus like the choir stuff, but I always consider bands like this doom metal for some reason. Not like your quintessential doom metal like Sleep, but you know, like that really.
Yeah, there's a real like existential, just like thread of just like dread and doom and terror.
Yeah.
In that sort of sense of the word of doom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, they remind me of bands like fucking. Blanket, like Swallow the Sun and stuff like that, you know, like those really kind of epic in scope bands. But you know, for 1998, you know, I think Swallow the Sun was still forming.
Willows, yeah, I think they were,
it's.
But yeah, and for 1998, how do you feel like this album basically sounds, and do you think it will? Does it really kind of stand the test of time for gothic? Because I don't really follow this kind of music. I'm not 100% into this. Listening to this album, it was like, yeah, I get it, but like it almost like put me to sleep.
I think it kind of holds up in some aspects. You know, I think the way Jesus Christ, I can't fucking talk right now. This is what happens when you're on 3 hours of sleep, guys. See, we've recorded this episode in 2 different increments. I'll
say don't give the game away.
No, it's more fun. They can know, like, so the first part of it they're going to hear is me, like, pretty much still kind of drunk. And then now this is me on 3 hours of sleep after working, like, a 9-hour shift at work. So my brain is just, like, fucking dying. So, okay, yeah. So I think there's elements of this record that definitely still stand out even to this day, and they really had a start of something cool here, and they were expanding on what had already been done with other genres and trying to push this subgenre into like another direction. And I think as the band went on, they refined that sound like way more. Like they got their shit down now, like they know what they sound like. So it's a nice little beginning for the band, and I don't know if the whole album stands up for 20 years. You know, it's certainly a little dated, some aspects of it, but there's some pretty good songs. I'm kind of into this kind of music and this subgenre of metal, so to speak. So it was an alright record to me. I don't know if I would go out of my way to listen to it.
Yeah, this was, like I said before, this isn't something I'd go out of my way to listen to, and it really just kind of cemented the fact that I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to it.
Yeah, I think that's like the funny thing about like doing these episodes is when we have to like kind of listen to a lot of the records. Sometimes I'll literally listen to about like 2 songs and I'll be like, got it. I know what this thing. I don't need to listen to the whole thing, you know. Yeah. But then, like, you know, I'll put this on and it's just kind of like in the background, you know. And it was okay for that. Like I didn't mind it as background music. Like I wasn't like fully paying attention to it, but I also wasn't like not paying attention to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, well, speaking of just you get the idea of a record based upon two of the songs. That's a pretty good segue rather, into the next record we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you talk about this record, but I want to preface this with I was on the fence about talking about this record because it's not really a metal record, but because of having Rob Halford in the project, it's worth talking about. Just
exactly.
Just to kind of let you know where he was at in 1998 and where Judas Priest was at in 1998.
Yeah, exactly. So after Halford left Priest, and after he did Fight and he did a whole bunch of other things, he decided to branch out into the wonderful world of 90s industrial rock.
Yes.
Forming a group known as 2WO, releasing their one and only album, Voyeurs. Now, this album was released on March 10th, 1998. Its lineup included Rob Halford on vocals, a guy by the name of John Lowry on the guitar and bass. Now, you're probably thinking, who's that guy, and why is he so important? Well, it's actually John Five.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right before he hooked up with Manson, I believe, he would have done this.
Yeah, and also Rob Zombie.
Record as well. Yeah, and Rob Zombie as well, yeah. Well, he later went on to Rob Zombie. We also have Bob Marlette playing keyboards, drum programming, and bass, with Phil Weston also pitching in for keyboarding and drum programming. And finally, rounding it out is Anthony Fu Valek, also doing keyboard and drum programming. Now, the executive producer on this record, and again, we've talked about in the past, if a record needs to have an executive producer as on top of just a regular producer, something's going either horribly wrong or horribly right.
Yep.
And this is executive producer is none other than Trent Reznor.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the forefather of industrial metal, besides like Godflesh,
Yeah. And rounding out production we have Bob Marlette. It was with additional production done by Dave Ogville. Engineering by Marlette and Ogville. It was mixed by Ogville with assistance from Gary Wenger and Dean Marr. And finally is mastered by Bob Ludwig.
Yeah, so Dave Ogilvy, I guess, he's from Skinny Puppy, which is another like industrial.
Oh God!
Yeah, so you have a lot of like the mainstays of the industrial kind of genre in here, and their little touches on the record are very, very obvious if you kind of know their body of work, even a little bit, like even just a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see Rob Halford going from Judas Priest to this and, making this record. And I didn't listen, excuse me. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I listened to probably about 3 or 4 songs and I was like, all right, I got it. What I was just talking about, like I did not need to listen to this whole record because honestly, it's very run of the mill, even for 1998. Yeah. Like it's a cool record. Like hearing Halford's vocals on it,
Yeah, him doing something else that isn't always talking about metal gods and
yeah,
other kinds of stuff as well. It's a bit of a branching out. It's a bit of an experiment, but yeah, like comparing it to everything else, I swear to God, I thought this was like a remix of a Nine Inch Nails song.
Yeah, I can see that. There's
like at the start of the movie Seven, and they have Closer playing.
Mm-hmm.
I swear to God, like the first or second song sounds like that.
Yeah, with that weird little like keyboard harpsichord sounding.
Yeah. And it's funny, the actual the pre-Reznor mixes of this album, because I think he probably would have jumped on later, from what it kind of says here, they're actually available to download off Rob Halford's website back in, I think he put them out back in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And the download package included this Shout and Scream, which remained unreleased for this album. So they actually had more songs on this album than actually released on it.
Yeah, that's the thing about another thing about like when you have electronic heavy music, like you're gonna be making so many fucking songs because it's so easy to just churn out like those beats and
just program.
That's why like I don't look down on that kind of music or anything like that, because I do enjoy some, you know, kind of I don't know what to call it, like techno or you know, programmed kind of music, and I do think it's easier than writing a song on a guitar. You know, just sit there on your fucking computer and like cut and paste all these little things or play on your little micro chord or whatever. Like, it's not hard to do that at all. But it does still take talent. You still have to know melody, you have to know rhythm, you have to know pitch, like all that, you know, basic songwriting stuff too. So it does take some skill in that respect too. But it's
and although exactly, and even when they did know all that kind of stuff, and even with this kind of lineup and who was involved, the album really wasn't all that successful, although it did gain like a bit of a cult following in years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a interview with John 5. He was talking about the record, and he was saying that he says, here's what's really cool. People love that record. They love that record now. When we were making that record, it was a very, very, very guitar-heavy record. Very heavy guitar record. He added, I remember Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine heard it, and he was like, this is my favorite record. This is incredible. Because it was really aggressive and heavy, and it had Halford just going nuts on it. And we got signed to Nothing Records, Trent Reznor's label. And then I was still making money and stuff, so I had to go on tour with somebody. And Halford, he took it to New Orleans with Trent to remix it, and it totally changed. Like, they took a lot of the guitars out. This was at a time when guitars weren't really that popular, and they took a lot of these guitars out, so the record completely changed. I was shocked and disappointed because all the guitars were taken out, but what was so strong about that album is those songs were so strong. They're such strong songs that it still holds up today, and people really enjoy that record. Halford has the songs with the guitars and all that stuff, and it sounds incredible. So pretty much what we were just talking about, this album did start out with all guitars. It wasn't that like heavily programmed and you know, industrialed out.
Yeah, very, very wasn't like a Nine Inch Nails-esque.
Which is crazy when you have somebody like Tom Morello going like, this is my favorite fucking record, and like the guitars sound good, and you know, and then you have Trent Reznor come in and he goes, nah, we don't need it.
No, we'll do this my way.
Yeah. It's funny though too, when I was reading this this paragraph, I don't know why, but it just sounded really Donald Trump-esque the way he was talking about it.
Oh, because of just like the single use of just like that one verb, like or noun over and over again. Yeah. Yeah, but John 5 actually continued to going on to say that when we put the two projects together, it was very raw, it was very stripped down. It did have a lot of hard rock, almost metal elements to it. And it was a great adventure that we have in music. So again, like I didn't actually go back and listen to those release demos that had all the guitars in it that Halford put out later, but I could only just imagine what it would sound like. And do you honestly think that if you were to go back and listen to it, it would actually make the record better?
Probably. To be honest, if everybody's like lauding like how good it sounds to this degree, like even Halford and, you know, Tom Morello, I trust Tom Morello's opinion on most things, especially musically. So if he's saying it was that good, like I would want to hear it, and I would bet that it's probably solid as fuck and would still probably hold up to this very day. You know, like John 5's a pretty good guitar player too, man. Like think about like the more solid guitar riffs that he's written for Marilyn Manson or even Rob Zombie. You know, I guarantee you he had some fucking sick ass riffs on this album that just got fucking taken out by Trent. So, you know, I'm really curious too if there was any like, he doesn't really talk about it, but like if there's any even like little animosity or jealousy there, the fact that Trent just scrapped like all his work basically and was like, well, we're only gonna use a little bit of guitar, you know, because I would be pissed off. I'd be like, what the fuck,
Yeah.
dude? I just spent all this time writing this music and recording it, and you're just throwing it away because why? You know? Because you think it doesn't need it? Or because guitars weren't that popular? That's such a dumb thing. Guitars are never not going to be popular.
Yeah, especially what happens in the next kind of 2 years as well. I feel like this is almost at the end, or basically the peak of that kind of industrial kind of music, and it all just kind of goes downhill from here.
Yeah.
When you really think about it.
Yeah, there's like no real industrial bands kind of going now. You just have the mainstays. You know, you have KMFDM and Ministry and Monster Magnet a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, like Fear Factory almost, but I don't know what they're doing now. So
yeah.
But I mean, we're kind of looking at this record, and you really only have to hear about 2 or 3 songs to kind of get where it's going. And for me, this is a real product of a time even before when this record came out.
Yep.
This needed to come out in 95 or like somewhere in between like 92 to 95 for it to really, be actually relevant, actually do well commercially and also critically.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little bit after its time. But, how are you going to fault the guy for trying something different,
Yeah, no, not faulting. Like, if you want to go do it, all the power to you to go do it. And there's like, I think the lead single of this song, I think the track's called If or something, is actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some, don't get me wrong, like there's the few songs that I listen to, like there's some cool stuff, and I would want to give it like a solid listen one day just to see if there's anything that like sticks out. I even think there's like a little tinge of Over in there, like later Over when they like went completely like non-metal. There's some there. I feel like there's some aspects of that band in there as well. So it's an interesting record, man. That's why I kind of wanted to talk about it. Like it's got a little bit of a legacy here. It's got great players on it, and it's not necessarily a metal record, or but it was something cool to kind of like throw in there. One last little thing here. I'm pretty sure this is Halford talking about this, not John 5 anymore. But he says, when I bumped into Trent Reznor, I don't even think that's the right word. I was in New Orleans for one Mardi Gras, and a friend of mine was driving me around, and we passed Trent's studio, and my friend suggested I knock on the door. And that's when I met Dave Rave Ogilvy. And I had the cassette with me and played the demos to Trent, who I've always admired. I think that man's extraordinary. And, something came out of it. So, yeah, that's one last little
kind of tidbit before we move on to the next album.
Yeah, man. So it's 1998 and Motorhead is still making albums. Snakebite Love.
Devil Storm, Nightside, Demon Drive, Nightside, ripped and torn, Nightside, Devil Storm.
Released March the 10th in 1998. You pretty much have your classic lineup here of Lemmy on vocals and bass, Phil Campbell lead guitar, and Mickey D on drums, man. That's about as bare bones Motorhead as you're gonna get right there.
Yeah.
Production on this record, you have Howard Benson, who's the producer, Chris Morrison, assistant engineer, Greg D'Angelo, assistant engineer, Chris Solemn did the mastering. Motorhead, they were executive producers, and Joe Pignon, Pitano, he did Snaggletooth and the album cover, basically. It was recorded in the Valley, mixed at Jake Place, and mastered at Future Disc. So, Snakebite Love, this is the 14th studio album of Motorhead. I mean...
And they just kept going.
How crazy is it to think that they are, they're one of like the founding kind of bands of heavy metal, and 14 records, that's where they're at right now. This is like way, if you really think about it, way past their prime. They're not writing
just, we need a paycheck.
Yeah, they're not writing Ace of Spades anymore, nothing like that. It's I don't know where to start with this album, but Motorhead's kind of a unique case. They just kept plowing forward with their own style of metal, irregardless of the state of the genre, and kind of like the wreckage of all the other bands that kind of like fallen in their path along the way. And I think that says something about the band too. Like, yeah, you can say, sure, maybe they wanted a paycheck out of it, but I still also think that they like writing and playing music. Otherwise, they wouldn't have made this album.
Wouldn't have done it. Yeah, they could just keep re-releasing your greatest hits, your best ofs.
Yeah,
and just tour forever. So yeah,
and I mean, 14 albums. That's a legacy career, man. I mean, at this point too, even if they stopped with this album, that would have been fine, man. That would have been fine. Nobody's gonna fault Motorhead for stopping at 14 albums, or even if they stopped like 2 albums before this. Like, the band had already cemented their status as legends at this point. This was the final album co-produced with Howard Benson. So getting down to kind of like the nitty-gritty of this record, by all accounts, the recording was rushed. And it's kind of apparent when you listen to it. Drummer Mickey D, he was quoted in the 2011 Motorhead book, Overkill, The Untold Story of Motorhead. He says, "We were stressed out of our minds when we did that album. It turned out okay, but no more than okay. We all know it. We should have had 3 more weeks on that, and it would have been a great album. I blame it completely on the time we had. For instance, we put on the worst song we ever had, which is Nightside. It's the worst shit we've ever done, and we thought it was shit when we did it. We had no time to write another tune. We had nothing left. So we all feel the same about that album. I've heard people say, that's the best album you got. And I'm like, what planet are you from?" So, it's so funny. It's like, it's the worst shit we've ever done.
Yeah, that's like almost being surrounded by a bunch of yes men. But Lemmy was also actually quite kind on this LP in his autobiography, White Line Fever, feeling that it came out quite nicely. But he also admitted that the recording process was a little bit all over the place. Lemmy actually recalled that the making of Snakebite Love was actually quite normal for the band, stating that he'd gone on to say that we had about 6 weeks to record it. We didn't even have one song before going into the studio. But when it came time, we put it together very quickly. Unfortunately, I was sick for some of those rehearsals. And then when you leave 2 guys together who aren't singers, you just end up with weird arrangements.
Yeah, it's a rushed album. Whose fault exactly is that? They don't really specify. Was it the label? Was it fucking?
Was it the manager? Yeah. Was it the actual record studio? Was it them?
Yeah, there's no telling, and it's cool though that they can at least acknowledge. A lot of bands won't fucking acknowledge certain aspects about like a fucked up record. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, we just don't talk about that record." Well, why the fuck not?
Yeah, or they'll just come to like the immediate defense of it.
Yeah,
saying, "No, man, you just don't understand it."
Yeah.
But I suppose when you do 14 albums, it's like,
Yeah, you can't sit there and like sniff your own farts and be like, "Yeah, this is good."
Otherwise you end up like fucking like Liam Gallagher or something like Oasis.
Yeah, and so like that's just what happens when you rush stuff, man. Like your heart's in the right place. You have the best intentions. You wanted to make something good, but then you just get shit. You get this. You know,
So
I will say, as much as they do kind of shit on Nightside, there is something oddly fun about that song. I can't pinpoint it. I don't know why, but because I remember when I was reading the stuff, I was like, oh, I gotta listen to this shit, and I did, and I was like, all right, well, it's not like it's not a Motorhead song, but I don't know. There's just something I like songs like that you know they're just like pure shit, and the band hates it. It just kind of gives it that little extra like, well, this is cool. I don't know. Like I can see like a little bit of a bright side in there somewhere.
yeah. So basically it goes on to point out that particularly the songs are Desperate for You and Nightside in this respect, and he explains how the title tracks started as a completely different song. He just says that Dee recorded the drum tracks against a totally different set of chords, and then they went back to Sweden where Campbell stated that he was sick of the song and he didn't like it. Lemmy agreed, and Campbell came up with a new riff and changed the whole thing. Lemmy admits that the album was a prime example of him writing the words at the last minute, and he adds, you know, lazy son of a bitch one more time, right?
Yeah, Lemmy knows, you know, and Lemmy's not like the best lyric writer either. You know, he's not fucking Shakespeare or whoever the fuck. I don't know.
Yeah, he's no yeah, exactly. He's not depressed. He just writes kind of fun, simple, you know, songs you can just bang your head to and that are loud.
Yeah. Here's a really good example of Lemmy's lyrics. Killed by death. What?
Yeah, that's like almost like Wake Up Dead shit.
Yeah. It's so on the nose. It's just like, well, yeah, of course you're gonna get killed by death. What else is gonna, you know? Anyways, yeah, that's, I don't know, man. That's part of Motorhead's charm too. Is like the weird lyrics that Lemmy writes.
Yeah, that it's almost just, I don't want to say it's dumb.
Yeah,
but it's just fun. It's just fun music to listen to. This album didn't even hold up for like, wouldn't have even held up for like in their prime. This album would not have held up.
No. But that being said, I think it's an interesting slice of the discography of Motorhead, and you should still listen to it at least once to kind of check it out, because it is a fucking weird ass record.
Exactly.
So before we go on to the next band, I have a couple little interviews with Lemmy talking about the record, so we're gonna play those real quick, and we'll be right back.
We really don't have a choice.
That's what rock and roll bands do, you know. And we are a rock and roll band. We're probably one of the last surviving true rock and roll bands in the world.
So when does a band that once were a rock and roll band stop being a rock and roll band?
And they start doing what the business tells them to do. And they start believing the ass kissers in the business. People who say everything's fine, just get your hair cut. You know.
I'm thinking that see the sun in your eyes.
If we wouldn't sell one record, we still release an album, and we really don't have a choice. I know Lem and I know myself, and I can speak for Phil. What the hell are we gonna do, you know?
You should start liking it. It'd be easier than disliking it, because we're not going to go away.
Who'd win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God? Lemmy. God.
Wrong. Trick question. Lemmy is God.
Let's talk about your new album, Snakebite Love.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
You're real excited about it, aren't you?
No.
You don't?
I don't get excited like that anymore. It's not that I don't think it's a good album. I think it's a great album. You know, but it's hard to maintain that sort of ooh wow, you know, stuff. Yeah. I mean, I know it's a good album. It's my nature to do albums, right? That's what I do. That's what I am. You know, I'm rock and roll. You know, yeah. I live in rock and roll. I do rock and roll. I am rock and roll, and I play damn good rock and roll too. And this is just another example of it, boys and girls, and everything.
Yeah, I really like the production on the album. It's real punchy.
Yeah, he's good, Howard. Yeah, he's done the last 4 albums and that.
All right, we're back. Or did we leave? I don't know. Did we?
No,
we didn't leave.
We're back.
All right, so yeah,
still here.
We're moving on from Motorhead, and we're going across the ocean to Deutschland for Tankard's Disco Destroyer.
I'm a disco destroyer. Yeah. I'm a disco destroyer. I'm a disco destroyer.
Released March 12th, 1998. The lineup on this record was Andreas Garamia on vocals, Frank Thorwarth bass, Andy, oh my god, this fucking last name, Bulgaropoulos, I think that's right, on guitar, and Olaf Ziesel on drums. Guys, just keep track of how much I fuck up names. That's like the best part of the podcast is me fucking up names. One day we'll make like a supercut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll leave you to do all that. Well, I'll just take like the Dan Smiths of the world.
That's like that's like one of the funny things though, is like try to figure out like even my last name, like everybody that tries to pronounce it, like they're always wrong. So it's like I'm doing the same thing to these poor people. It's not like names are weird, hooked on phonics style, especially if you don't speak the language. Like Bulgaropoulos, that's a fucking hard ass name to say.
Exactly, yeah. But moving on to this record here.
Yes, it was recorded and mixed at Spiderhouse/Lute in December of 1997 and January of 1998. So let's talk about Disco Destroyer. Gear, that would be Andreas, the vocalist, he explains, whereas The Tankard was one of our most melodic albums, Disco Destroyer was going back to the roots. It was also the last album of our guitarist Andy Bulgaropoulos. Yes, fucking did it.
Yeah.
At this point in time, we did not know what would happen with Tankard after Andy. We did not have a replacement for him when we recorded the album. We had worked with Harris Johns again, as we had over the last 12 years. With Death by Whips, we had re-recorded an old Tankard demo song for the very first time. That was a lot of fun, especially for me, as the original lyrics were totally useless. The title track was composed right there in the studio, another first for Tankard as a band. It was a joke song. I recorded the vocals for Disco Destroyer right at the end and can still vividly remember how I was giving it my very best full throttle. There are a couple really good songs on the album, Serial Killer and Queen of Hearts, for example, but all in all, it's not one of the absolute best Tankard records, to be honest. Especially the sound should have been a little bit better. And that's from his own mouth. So, the thing about Tankard is basically they're the German version of Municipal Waste. I think I said that in the beginning of this episode. So they just write thrash songs about like kind of jokey subjects,
and beer.
Yeah, and beer, lots of beer. I think they just put an album out this year or last year, and it's the same thing. The band's been going since like 1980 something. I think like 87 or maybe even earlier. I don't know. The band's been around for like a long ass time. So, it's not my thing. I can appreciate it.
Yeah, I can appreciate. Yeah, but this just is not my thing. I think I've even seen these guys play here once.
Really?
Yeah, and again, it's just like people having fun, but I don't know if I'm just the square, but this just isn't my thing.
Yeah, and it's funny too because like they have a good shtick there with like being a thrash band that's all about like doing songs about beer and drinking. But for whatever reason, man, like the songs feel really juvenile and just like stupid, whereas like Municipal Waste, like I don't know, like not only are they fun, but they're a little more refined and like good.
It's a lot less like toilet humor.
Yeah, that's the other.
Even though the band is called Municipal Waste.
I know, right? And to be fair, it's not fair to make comparisons between the two bands because like it's even though they're both like thrash bands, they don't really sound the same. They just kind of have the same little like shtick going. And if anything, Municipal Waste owes that to Tankard in some respects. So it's like Municipal Waste took this and just refined it and did it a little bit better. But you can't take away the fact that Tankard like kind of started that thing, whatever you want to call it. So one last little thing about this record. Gare says there's a cover version of Manowar's Fast Taker on the record. He's just kind of talking about what's in the record itself. He says, I will also supply exclusive photo material. So Disco Destroyer is the first Tankard vinyl release after the Tankard album from 1995. Can that be true? And he says that seems to be the case. Yes, that's true, but I don't know how many copies of it were pressed back in the day. Disco Destroyer was never released on vinyl back then. Not a lot of companies produced vinyl in the late 90s. That's why I'm happy that the Tankard back catalog will be re-released on vinyl now. We as a band don't hold the rights, but I don't foresee any problems with the companies or their legal successors who do hold the rights. I mean, by the 90s, like vinyl was a dead fucking thing, whereas like now, it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't it like is it still outselling CDs? I mean,
it is.
I assume it would be. Yeah.
Yep. Vinyl is still outselling CDs. It's not, still not outselling digital downloads, obviously, but
yeah, exactly. Or like even like what's going on with like streaming or like subscription services or anything like that. But if you've got a vinyl, I mean, there's no.
I think you just cut out, man.
I was going to say like metal or like rock music in general. I'm going to say in this day and age, there's really no reason why you wouldn't have one or thinking about wanting to get a vinyl player in or like an actual record player in the future.
Yeah, man. I mean, I started collecting records in like 2008. I've slowed that down quite a bit over the past year and a half, 2 years. I don't think I've bought a vinyl record. I've actually sold quite a bit of my collection, but there was something about vinyl records, man, like when you look at them and you get to see like all that packaging and like how cool like the colors look like on the vinyl itself too. It's just like it's a whole nother thing, man. So
yeah, and like even though I think the last vinyl record I bought was Taylor Swift's Reputation. Like no joke, I'm looking at it right now. Like it's something that like, if I get a little bit extra more money into me, I might go and get like a not like I need to go, because vinyl here is expensive. It's like I was looking at something the other day. I think it was like Parkway Drive's new album. It was like $40 or $50 or something like that on vinyl. Yeah. Well, even just something else. I can't remember exactly what I was. Again, it was the Deftones album. I think it was up around the fur. It was like $47.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah, so I mainly just
import tax.
we really are, right? So I mainly just get like ones that are like say $20 or $30. They're just like albums that everybody has, like say like some Nirvana records or like Akadaka stuff. Mm-hmm. Just to have it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I really do. But I mean, getting back to even this, there is a demand. If they haven't been released on vinyl already, these Tankard records, there is a demand for it, and it will go.
Oh, I think they all have been, because they think a lot of their back catalog is on Nuclear Blast, and Nuclear Blast puts every one of their bands on vinyl.
Yeah, dead set, yeah.
Yeah, so I maybe not their whole discography, but I think like quite a bit of it is probably on vinyl, if you guys are into that. So that kind of wraps up like a little bit about this record. I mean, what do you think like for 20 years? I mean, I know I said it's not my thing, but I can also see like why people would love this band today. Yeah,
I think if you like this kind of European thrash metal, this record does hold up rather. But if this isn't your thing, then this won't change your mind.
Yeah, no, it won't. All right, so that wraps up Tankard's Disco Destroyer. Now we're going to be moving on to Symphony X, Twilight and Olympus.
I'm the master, looking down from the edge of space and time. Flesh and steel intertwined. I am the future. Sacrifice your soul and succumb to me.
Released March 13th, 1998. The lineup on this record: Russell Allen, lead vocals and production; Michael Romeo, guitar, sitar, mini harp, and background vocals; Michael Pinella, keyboard, background vocals, and it says in quotations, knives and chainsaw juggling. I guess that's some kind of in-joke with the band. I don't know. Thomas Walling on the drums, Thomas Miller, bass guitar and background vocals. You have Steve Evitts, who did production, and Eric Rachel, who also did production. So, Symphony X is,
As soon as you said that this thing was recorded by Steve Evitts, I knew that this was going to be recorded at Trax East in New Jersey.
Yep. So, yeah, that's where it was recorded. Trax East, South River, New Jersey, and the Symphony X Dungeon. Ooh. Sounds really
sounds like a place you want to take a steady gal.
Yep. Yeah, it's an X dungeon, but you're gonna get to listen to a symphony, so it's like a nice little date and fuck.
Exactly. Yes. So Twilight in Olympus was the fourth album studio album that was released by Symphony X. In Twilight of Olympus, it saw one of only two Symphony X albums with no title track.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. The other being the self-titled album. Instead, the unfinished compositions of these sessions, which would have formed the title track, would later be reworked and distributed in fragments throughout the album 5, the new Mythology Suite. They released that one 2 years later, in 2000. Particularly the final track, Rediscovery Part 2, the new Mythology. Guitarist Michael Romeo has since confirmed about half of the song Twilight Olympus, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah, that's this band is very how should I put this? They're methodical with what they do. Like they write all these songs and they don't ever throw anything away. They will always reuse something somewhere else on another song, on another album at another time, if they have to. Kind of like King Diamond does. I know we talked about that too. He does that. He saves stuff for years and years and years, and he's like, wait, we got this riff, let's put it in here. Bam. This band's a little bit more pragmatic with that. You know, they save stuff and use it like pretty soon after it isn't used on whatever they're working on at the time. So What he says about that, though, the guitar player Romeo, he says, my target as a metal fan and listener was, how does something have to sound to blow me over? Each song should be as perfect as possible, really gripping and straight to the point. In other words, heavy, aggressive guitar riffs, haunting vocals, and dark orchestrations to complement epic, detailed, passionately performed numbers. Something that makes you say, wow, that's brilliant. That's what we set out to achieve. And that was kind of him referring to the new album Paradise Lost, which is not this album, but it was a good quote in a sense that
just to kind of to get inside his mind as a songwriter and as someone not only just a musician but also a fan of this kind of music as well.
Yeah, and like I know we're not talking about that record, but I thought it was important just to kind of like, you know, hear what he has to say of like how they kind of write stuff as a band, and you know, it shows that he wants to write stuff that he wants to listen to, which is, you know, it's on the verge of wanting to sniff your own farts and make them smell good, as the analogy I used earlier, but I think that they do it in a smart way. Like the guy knows how to make and write music. He's very meticulous and wants to craft a really good song. You know, he doesn't want to just put something shitty out there. You know, he doesn't want to rush anything.
Yeah, and you know, full credit to him, but yeah, I don't know, I didn't particularly care for this album.
Well, yeah, I didn't either, because I fucking hate power metal, but yeah, I listened to one song and I was like, cool, I'm good. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck it is about power metal, man. Like, I've tried so hard to get into it. Like, I know the guitar players are amazing in all these bands. Like, I know the musicianship.
I feel like it's because, yeah, I feel like it's because you hear that fucking, you know, the music is loud, it's fast, and it's very technical, and you want, and you know, probably growing up as like listening to like, you know, hardcore and like, you know, death metal and all that, you'd want those kind of vocals, just something, the vocals to basically go over the top and not only match but just exceed that. But instead, you get these kind of guys just kind of wailing and it's that really kind of like high pitched singing to kind of that, you know, kind of upsets. Not, I wouldn't say upsets, but kind of goes against the sensibilities of both you and I on how we both got into metal. Would basically, you know, take that.
Yeah, and that is the main like thing that I don't like about power metal is the vocals, because it's like too operatic and singy for me. Like I want death growls. But I mean,
yeah, and even then, like it almost wouldn't work.
No, it wouldn't work at all. It'd sound fucking terrible, I'm sure.
Yeah,
but you know, like I said, I can appreciate the music and the musicianship of, you know, the bands themselves. That's why, like, I always want to give it a chance, because like maybe I'll hear one good song of something and I'll be like, all right, well, fuck yeah, I can get into this. I think there's like literally only one power metal band that I listen to. They're called Powerwolf, and they're like, their whole shtick is that they're these priests who turn into werewolves, and they only write songs about werewolves and like religion and the Crusades and cool shit like that. So I'm kind of into them a little bit. Like I don't listen to them all the time, but they got some pretty fucking good songs.
Yeah.
Anyways, Smoke and Mirrors cites Johann Sebastian Bach's Mass in B minor, the Kyrie Eleison, written in 1749 in the instrumental interlude after the second chorus. Sonata contained parts of the second movement of Ludwig van Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 8, Pathetique, which was written in 1799. So, Through the Looking Glass obviously is based on Lewis Carroll's novels Through the Looking Glass, which was written in 1871 and was a sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The song Orion the Hunter contains lyrics from The Raging Season from Symphony X's self-titled album, which came out in 1994. And lastly, Lady of Snow. According to the bassist Thomas Miller, he was inspired by the popular Japanese mythological figure Yuki Onna. According to Michael Romeo, he says, the band was looking for a musical and lyrical theme to represent tonalities and scale ideas for a new song, and Tom suggested the Lady of Snow story, so the music was written to reflect the lyrics. And that's a pretty cool way to write a song. You know, they weren't really thinking about the
we just wanted to retell a story throughout history.
Well, no,
we did.
It's not that I was trying to go for. Basically, they started with the lyrics and story in mind, and they wanted to write the music around the words, which is...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so that's so backwards from how songs are typically written. You have the music first, and then you write the lyrics and the words. So that's pretty interesting. So you have to sit there and think that maybe they came out with all these vocal patterns first, and then they sat down with the guitars and wrote that with the vocal patterns, and that's a really cool kind of way to kind of configure a song. So I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool song too, I have to admit. It's all right. I think I've heard it once.
Yeah, just one last thing before we basically kind of final thoughts on this album. The album cover.
Well, you know, it's
that That is like
no
some of
Andy
the
Warhol.
worst Adobe Photoshop like version 1 I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a pretty terrible album cover.
Like that is something I'm saving, and if we ever do like a best of the worst of album covers, it's going in there as at least an honorable mention.
Yeah, that's the thing with power metal too. Where they try to put like all these epic scenes on their album covers, and what's funny is I think a lot of Symphony X's album covers are pretty terrible.
Yeah, like I'm going through them. Oh Jesus Christ! Oh, like album number 5, the Mythology Suite. Jesus Christ, that's like when everyone says that Black Sabbath Sabotage is bad, this is like a whole beer.
Yeah, they don't have the best album covers. I'm sure, like for them, they think they're pretty badass looking, and like I'm sure the fans probably love a lot of their covers too. But like as somebody who's not super into the band, and I just see that cover, think about like
although the Odyssey, the 6th album, that's a pretty good album cover. It's got like the old wooden boat, and it's in the storm. That looks cool.
Yeah. But I mean, think about too, like how I know you've done this, and I know I've done it. You go into a record store, you see something that has a badass cover, and you buy it based on that alone.
Yeah.
If I'm sure when I was younger, I saw a Symphony X cover, and I was like, "The fuck is this shit?"
Nope.
Yeah. So it didn't work on me, but I'm sure it worked on some people, and now they fucking love Symphony X. So yeah, man.
Although speaking of album covers, the next one we've got going on.
Yeah, we're gonna yeah. So yeah, I guess that wraps up Symphony X's Twilight and Olympus. So go check it out if you really like.
If you like power metal, and if you even want to hear some more Steve Evans production.
Yeah, that's a good reason to listen to it. The production. That's something we didn't really talk about too much, but I mean it's power metal. Of course, it's gonna have good production.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like moving on to the next album that we've got here, the highly contentious and controversial Virtual 11 by Iron Maiden.
Virtual 11.
Now you're probably wondering, well, why is an Iron Maiden record controversial? They're all good. They all have classics after classics. And to which you'll tell someone that's kind of just starting to get into metal but doesn't know everything, you tell them about 1990s Iron Maiden.
Yeah. I have never listened to this record, and I never will. That's what I'm going to say about this record.
Oh boy, you
I just won't. I won't do it. I won't. I can't.
Yeah. See, I've listened to this because like countless amount of times, not because not because I like it or anything like that, just because you told me to listen to it again. I remember listening to this when I was starting to get back into when I was getting into Maiden for the first time, and just oh wow, this is Maiden now.
This was such a weird misstep in the band's career. Like, we talk about like Motorhead putting out like a shitty, really quick written album. This was like almost the opposite. They spent so much fucking time on every little aspect of this album, and this is what we got. And not only that, it's a excuse me, Jesus, why am I am so fucking tired. I'm sorry, guys. What is the fucking singer of Iron Maiden's
name? Bruce Dickinson.
Yes, thank you. Holy fuck. I'm not hallucinating yet, if anybody wonders, but
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a Bruce Dickinson-less album. So that's another reason alone, like, why I don't want to listen to it. Like, I've written that whole timeline of Iron Maiden completely off my radar. Like, maybe that's a closed-minded thing to do, and I get that, but I just don't want to sour my love for the band
Yeah, but at the same time, right? So Bruce Dickinson really isn't the man as far as Iron Maiden goes. It's Steve Harris. Now, those first two Iron Maiden records, I believe this was the self-titled one, and Killers.
Yeah.
They had Paul Di'Anno on vocals, and then wasn't until Number of the Beast when Maiden came out and they really got big. But those first two records, you can still go back and they still got some fucking great songs on it. And you can still kind of, like rock out to it.
Oh, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. But the ones they put out after Fear of the Dark and before Brave New World, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, man, that's what I'm saying. Like, Iron Maiden fell into this weird rut where they got left behind. And they were trying to play catch up and bandwagon hop and just do all these weird fucking things. And
yeah, because like what you'd have to understand with Maiden was like throughout the 80s, they were essentially like the band to top, and they had All on Top of the World, and then Enter Sandman came out.
Yep, that kind of changed like the landscape.
That changed everything for them.
Yeah, I think that changed things for a lot of bands in general. I know we're going to talk about the Black Album eventually, but, shit on it as much as you want, but it was a game-changing record, and it does have some fucking good-ass songs on there. But we're not here to talk about the Black Album.
We're here to talk about Virtual 11, unfortunately.
Yes, we very unfortunately have to talk about Virtual 11. What's funny, too, is, like, every time I look at the title of this record, maybe I'm like slightly dyslexic, but that Roman numeral I keep wanting to say Virtual 9.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
I get you.
So Matt, take us through who all is on this record.
So it's your standard Iron Maiden lineup with Steve Harris, Dave Murray, Janet Greers, Nico McBain, but then you've got Blaze Bayley on lead vocals, having replaced Bruce Dickinson, who then went on to go have a solo career. Mm-hmm. You have additional musicians working on this album. Michael Kenny on the keyboards on all the tracks except for The Klansman, The Angel and the Gambler, and Don't Look a Stranger in the Eyes. Now, Steve Harris provided keyboards on the songs The Klansman, Angel and the Gambler, and the other one, Don't Look a Stranger in the Eyes. As far as production goes, we've got Nigel Green. He was the producer, the engineer, and the mixer. You've got Mick McKenna, the assisting engineer, Simon Hayworth on mastering, Melvin Grant with the sleeve illustration, and Synthetic Dimension with sleeve design and 3D imagery.
Yes, and it's important that we mention those names because not only did they make a music album, they decided to make a video game along with it too. And the whole virtual reality weird I don't understand like what they were trying to do with this record, man. Obviously there's a lot of stuff to talk about with this record, so this is kind of the cool part about it. Like there's a lot of information on this record, which is nice because you would think that for like how I don't know what it sounds like, so I don't want to say I feel hypocritical. It sounds like, I feel hypocritical saying it's terrible.
It kind of sounds almost like a cover versions of songs Fear of the Dark from that recording session.
Jesus.
Yeah, so Virtual 11's title is tied in with two musical events: the release of the band's computer game Ed Hunter, I believe that was released on PC, and the fact that the 1998 FIFA World Cup of Soccer, football, would be taking place in June of that year.
Yep.
Harris explains that we figured our fans are pretty much the same as we are, and they were pretty much like the same things, so we bought... so that's what we thought. It's the World Cup year of 98, so let's get football involved with the new album. And here we are working on a computer game at that time too, so we thought, well, let's blend all of everything together too. Prior to the album's release, the band organised a publicity tour in which they held football matches, soccer matches, across Europe with guest musicians and pro footballers, soccer players from the UK.
Yeah, so why they thought that, like, oh, we like football, so that means all our fans will like it too. Not saying a lot don't.
Yeah, that's probably like a lot of kind of the UK and Europe thinking.
Yeah, it's a weird
as well.
Weird thought process behind this whole record.
Yeah, well, most of the artwork of the album's booklet was taken from the Ed Hunter video game. Melvin Grant created the cover, surprisingly not Eddie Riggs.
Yeah,
and according to Grant,
yeah, another thing, they're not having Derek Riggs' fucking art on the cover. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you'd have to kind of dive deeper into that. And according to Grant, he was asked to design something that would related to virtual reality. And keeping in mind, this is like the 1998 version of virtual reality.
It's a Lawnmower Man.
Yeah, do you ever see that movie Hackers?
Yeah, Hackers. Yeah,
where it's like the 3D imagery. Yeah, yeah. So this is like, it's not like what virtual reality is now. It's a bunch of just like idiots wearing like virtual goggles.
Yeah.
So the design was to be about virtual reality, but later, when asked to alter the artwork by adding football into adding a football game, the band had decided to link the release to the World Cup. This was also the first album of the band to feature an alternate logo. It extended the ends of the R, the M, and the N removed. Now, if you're looking at this record here, it's almost, like this album art. You've got almost like a football picture, and then you've got like, I don't even know if that's Eddie or if it's like a demon Eddie or something like that, is like coming in from like the shadow realm into like the night, into like kind of like the earth kind of like sphere. It's just, this is not what you think of when you would basically think of an Iron Maiden record, but we kind of digress.
Well, I mean, think about like 1998. The whole thing with like album covers at this point. It, like, don't get me wrong, it does look pretty, I guess, metal in some respects. Like there's like a lot of red, and like it looks like souls and stuff like that. But it's all predicated that this person is playing, a game on the cover. And then way in the little corner, there's the little football match going on, and you could tell that was just like shoved in there last minute, and it doesn't fit. It just looks so forced in there. It's a weird thing to just be like, yeah, let's put a football match on our cover.
Yeah, if like you really like, I don't know how much design it really is, but like you'd want to have the kid playing the virtual game kind of in the kind of more prominent than is the shadow demon monster coming in, because you don't even know what it looks like, because it goes the shadow demon monster in the top right, then this kid playing like VR video games in the kind of the bottom left, and then further into the bottom left is like a little football match. So I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know either. It's a weird cover.
So they'd actually go on to use that new logo design on all their future studio albums and also live releases, except for the Flight 666 and Made in England 88, when it was of course going back to their pre-92 tours, where they just wanted to have the old font because they were playing all the old songs. And right up until the Final Frontier album.
Yep.
However, the Book of Souls, the band's 16th album, and I think it was the last album they put back out. I think they put that out in like 2014 or 15.
15, yeah.
Yeah, it features the original logo on its cover. And for this album, some keyboard parts... we're going back onto this album here. For this album, some of the keyboard parts were performed by the band's bassist Steve Harris, whereas on the previous album, they had actually used his bass technician, Michael Kenny, to play those keyboard parts.
Yeah, the keyboards... I mean, again, I've not listened to this record, but I feel like I bet they did they rely heavily on the keyboards for this record, or is it just kind of like one of those things that's in the background that you don't...
It's kind of there.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just there. As with the previous World Tour, several US shows on the Virtual 11 tour had to be cancelled as Bailey had vocal issues, apart from the fact he couldn't sing. Although the official reason was instead that he was suffering from a severe allergic reaction to pollen.
Motherfucker.
This would be the...
Let me tell you about pollen. I am literally suffering from... Listen, I haven't had allergies in like 6 years. I'm sure everybody can hear it in my voice right now as I'm talking. Like, living in the South during the spring and allergy season is a fucking nightmare. I don't think it can't be that bad over in England.
No, but then I don't know what is. They complain about like heat, and it gets up to like 23 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
That's probably like 23 Celsius is probably like 70.
Oh, that's like perfect weather.
yeah. So anyway, back to this. This would be thankfully this would be Blaze's final record they did with Maiden, when in February 99, 1 year after this record was released, the band that they announced that they had brought back both Bruce Dickinson and Adrian Smith, who'd left in 93 and 1990. Respectively, and they'd be returning to the lineup with Blaze Bailey being asked to leave.
I was watching some TV show probably like, I don't know, 3 years ago, and Blaze Bailey like showed up on it. It was about him. He owns some fucking restaurant like in Kentucky or Ohio or wherever the fuck he lives. And yeah, he just runs a restaurant, and like he wasn't doing a good job. It was one of those like save your business kind of shows. Like he wasn't doing a good job with the restaurant because he was trying to make it a restaurant and a heavy metal venue, and neither was doing good. So it was like, damn, that guy was in fucking Iron Maiden for 2 records. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. So but so going on to a little bit more about Blaze Bailey. Stylistically, Bailey states that the Virtual 11 was a bit more upbeat in comparison to his predecessor. The first album he was on, called The X Factor. I think that was put out in 95. When we were abandoned, I felt that we were on our way, and according to Harris, Futural, whose lyrics were written by Bailey, is about being locked up in virtual reality, and it describes it as a quite straightforward rock. It's quite a straightforward rocker, but done Maiden style. So yeah, the songs are a bit more kind of like, they weren't like those big kind of like 6-7 minute songs you really do expect from Maiden.
Mm-hmm. Also,
initially, yeah,
I realize I am an idiot, and I'm getting him confused with the guy that replaced Judas Priest. I'm thinking of
Tim Owens.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Tim Owens. My bad,
dude. You tangented, you segued and tangented, only for it to be wrong.
Guys, I've had 3 hours of sleep today. Kill me.
Yeah. Anyway, so so that was the opening track on this record was the band's like opening kind of single to it. The album's second single, manager Ron Smallwood claims that he had a bit of a battle with Steve over the release of Futural, and instead The Angel and the Gambler would be the album's lead single, but Steve put his foot down. According to Harris, The Angel and the Gambler is a story about these two characters. One guy is being a bit of a rogue fly by night, and an angel who gets sent down to try and put him right, except he isn't having any of it.
Sounds like Hellblazer a little bit. Constantine. He's a bit of a rogue, a little bit of fly by night.
Yeah, exactly. A bit of a kind of a cavalier man.
Yeah.
And on the album's remaining songs, Lightning Strike Twice is, according to Harris, never say never type of song. It's a very positive, hopeful song, which you can read in lots of different ways. The Klansman was inspired by the film Braveheart. That Harris states it's about knowing what it's like to belong to a community and try to build it up, and then you have to fight to stop it being taken away from you. Speaking about when two worlds collide, not the Power Man 5000 song. Harris states, lyrically, I think Blaze was trying to write about what it would be like to have lived in the world that he's lived in, being the Iron Maiden singer and now being in Iron Maiden, and what he's kind of like having to kind of exist in both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, those are big shoes to fill, man. I mean, anybody who's gonna come into a band after, I mean, this is their 11th album. He came in on the 10th album. You have 9 albums of a singer that everybody knows and loves. Like, it takes more balls to sit there and try to be embraced and run with it. I think the only, it usually never works out, man, but I think the only time that that I can think of where it really worked out for a band was probably Killswitch Engage, when they went from Jesse to Howard. People embraced Howard pretty quickly, but then obviously they went back to Jesse, which is cool. But I did see that they have a song they recorded on their new album with both Jesse and Howard on vocals. I'm fucking
that'd be sick.
Dude, I'm psyched. So some more of the kind of songs about this. The Educated Fool is another one. It's according to Harris, it's about when you get older and everyone's expect you to be wiser, but somehow you're older, and the more you know, the less you have the answers for any of it. So even though everyone thinks you're supposed to be smarter when you're older, you're just not. Yeah.
It's kind of like you and I.
Yeah, I don't know shit about shit, man.
And finally, one of the songs here, Como Estados Amigos, is a tribute to the soldiers on both sides of the Falklands War.
Well, I mean, I don't know shit about the Falklands War, so...
The Falklands War is is an interesting conflict, because basically what it was really just a big war of attrition. So Argentina claimed that they had ownership over a set of islands off their coast called the Falklands, but meanwhile the British said they did. The Argentinian guns, they could really only fire 40, 49 feet, for example. So the British, what they would do, they'd park their boats 51 meters out from shore, and then they'd just blast the fucking shit out of Argentina.
Jesus.
Yeah, that was all Margaret Thatcher in the 80s, kind of early 80s. So that's kind of the basics of it all, really. It was all pointless.
I mean, it's good to write.
Kind of like Bailey's run in Maiden. Pointless. Yeah.
I mean, it's good to see that the band's trying to write songs that are still a little bit of political aspect to them, even though I don't think it really suits their style. I like their concept albums more than anything.
Well, they've always had songs about
totally.
war.
Yeah.
What Run to the Hills? It's about the Native American and English settler kind of battle, and it told it from both sides, and it was always been one of their hits, and will always be a staple of their live shows and discography. So
yeah.
And again, Harris is the main songwriter of the band. It is not Bruce Dickinson.
No, I understand that, but his vocals mesh so well with the rest of the band that it's just kind of it only makes sense. And I know we already talked about this on one of our very, very first episodes that we ever did. When we had the Paul Di'Anno Iron Maiden. They're both fine, but I just prefer Dickinson. And some of the songs on this record too, after Dickinson rejoined the band, they continued to play Future Real, Klansman in concert, but Future Real was only performed live in 1999. The Klansman appeared in the group's set list until 2003, and live versions of both the songs with Dickinson on vocals can be found on the Wicker Man single and the Rock in Rio album, respectively. And while that same live version of the Klansman was later re-released on Iron Maiden's 2011 compilation record, Blaze Bayley did record solo versions of Future Real and When Two Worlds Collide on his live album, As Live as It Gets. And the singer Brandy in her song I Tried sampled the track The Klansman. Hello.
Yeah, play you there?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, alright. Just gotta power through it.
Yep.
Alright, cool.
So yeah, the R&B singer Brandy in her song "I Tried" sampled the track "The Klansman." That's a really weird and obscure.
That's
thing.
like so out of left field. That's bizarre.
Yeah, you know, I don't. I'm not familiar with Brandy's body of work. I know who she is. I've seen her before for sure. But I want to know whose idea that was, like, out of all the Iron Maiden songs, they chose "The Klansman."
Well, she probably what came out around about the 90s. She was probably on EMI as far as her, you know, she was probably on EMI, the same label as Maiden was, and say, hey, we need to get this big. Hey, yo, man, I got this beat here.
Yeah.
We can use it. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, like, what now? 20 years for this record.
Yeah, you know, I'll never listen to it. You can't pay me enough money. Well, actually, you probably could. If you paid me $100,000, I will listen to this record.
If you pay me $500, I'll listen to it again.
No, not worth it.
Yeah, so I think we better just like move right along.
All right, guys. We got 2 motherfucking records left. This next one's gonna be quick because I couldn't find out shit about it at all. Rage 13. And that is all in Roman numerals. Lots of Roman numerals on this one, like I said earlier. Released March 23rd, 1998. The lineup was Peter P.B. Wagner on vocals and bass. Spiros, God damn it, Ephidimantis on guitars, Sven Fischer on guitars, and Chris Ephidimantis on drums. That is a fucking hard ass name. Additional musicians, you have Christian Wolf on piano and the Lingua Mortis Orchestra. This album was recorded between October and November of 1997 at Principal Studios in Senden, Germany. It was mixed in November of 97 at Whistlelord Studios in Hilversum, Netherlands, and it was also mastered at Whistlelord Studios. I couldn't really find a lot about this record. Basically, the tracks 4, 5, and 6 form a thematic trilogy entitled Changes, and this is the band's 13th album, and it was recorded with the Lingua Mortis Orchestra. I don't know much about this band in general, to be honest.
Yeah, they're a German kind of like synthetic power metal.
Yeah.
Band. This, interestingly enough, Hard Rock Magazine, I don't know how much clout you want to put into their publication, but they've actually ranked this album back in 2005. It was number 272 on their 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time.
Which is interesting, because if it was rated that, that's just one publication, but like I was really any of their other records I could find plenty of information on, but for whatever reason this one I was just like, I couldn't find shit about it. But it's their 13th album. The band's been around for a long ass time at this point. It's probably just
they've just put an album out last year.
Yeah, it was just probably like another album that they put out and just it just got lost in the shuffle. Especially in 1998. Think about, like, there's so many more. There's just better records that came out.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, again, it's the same kind of thing as Tankard. Like, if this is your thing, it's your thing. If not, it's not. There's 2 cover songs on this album, actually.
Yeah.
One's of Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones, and then in the limited release of this album, they had a cover of Rush's Tom Sawyer.
So many bands have covered Paint It Black.
From these guys, Black Dahlia Murder.
Yeah, and the Agony Scene.
Yeah.
I think the Black Dahlias is the best out of all of them, though. That song is... Yeah,
it's the most kind of interesting one that kind of, like, it does the song, but it also puts their own twist on it, which is always what you want to see a cover doing.
Yep.
Even if the production's kind of shit house.
Yep. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it for this record. Like I said, this was a quick one. This was another case too where like I think I did email the band and I was like, hey, I have some questions about this record. If I could just shoot them your way and like we could get them answered, that'd be great. And I never heard anything back. So
no.
Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, we're not always gonna get every single bit of information because it's just not out there. Unless I'm able to directly like talk to these guys, it is what it is. So there we go. Rage is 13.
Yeah.
And this brings us to our final album of the episode. We're gonna go into a little diatribe at the end of this, but Marduk's Nightwing. Released March 28th, 1998. Again, when I'm looking up information, I find so many different dates. So it's also possible it was released August 4th, 1998, or also possibly April 1st, 1998. Now, these could all be like international release dates or some other country release date. But as far as I know, it was released March 28th. But who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
The lineup on this record, you have Legion on vocals, Morgan Steinmeier Haakonsen on guitar, B. War on bass, Frederick Anderson on drums, and Peter Tagren did the mixing. So this was recorded and mixed during October and November of 1997 at the Abyss Studio. And by the time Nightwing came out, this was the 5th Marduk album and the 2nd without their original with vocalist Eric Hadstead. Yes, not without. Sorry, with Legion. That's his stage name.
That's his gangster name.
Yeah.
It hit the band hit the market, and it had the real kind of the familiar sound, but with a new style. This album was released a year after Heaven Shall Burn. I think it was their 4th album.
Yeah.
In continuation with the album's sound and with the overall increased levels of density within the recording. The lineup remained pretty identical from the album that preceded it, and the internal stability within the band actually paid dividends in terms of the consistency and the performance of each of the members, I found. So it's amazing what can happen if everyone just sticks together.
Yeah, this is probably a really underrated Marduk album. It's fucking... I wouldn't have actually really got into them if it wasn't for Gunface from the Red Chord. He recommended this album. Out of all their discography, he was like, listen to Nightwing, and I was like, done. So I listened to it and I was like, shit, he's right, man. This record's fucking good. This is a hidden gem. Yeah, it's a burner, man. Like it's pretty relentless. And I mean, even then, man, like, we talk about the consistency and the performances of each member. Nightwing, it has a really hostile, concrete, and steel-sounding death metal production job. Like, this album sounds good as fuck. And you gotta think, too, like, maybe this was kind of the production that you wish, like, say, an album like Cataclysm's Temple of Knowledge had. But it is a bit of a head scratcher to see black metal band do a death metal production better than an actual death metal band. Like, how fucking crazy is that?
Yeah, when you can actually kind of tell the richness of the actual instruments instead of just kind of stripping everything back to like it's really just kind of bare bones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which like black metal, especially in the early '90s, and I don't know how much of it happened kind of like in the kind of late '90s, early 2000s. This was all happening, but this is cool.
Yeah, this album sounds good. It's got good songs on it. It's like, even though black metal's like past its peak in in terms of its heyday, hearing a band like Marduk just like keep fucking going with like their thing and refine it to a point where they're like just they're not doing anything else that a lot of other black metal bands are doing. They're kind of like bucking those trends, and obviously with having like a seemingly death metal style production on the record. It paid off. I think it paid off big time. But again, it is an underrated gem. It's an album that most people don't really look at too much in their discography, and I think that's a crime. It's a criminally underrated record. So there are some themes on this record. It is a little bit of a thematic kind of record. The main theme is blood, and it's divided into two parts. The first, in the satanic ways customary of Marduk's lyrics, but the second part tells actually a little bit history of Vlad Tepes Dracul, the Impaler of Wallachia, and this is not to be confused with Vlad Tepes, the, I guess, impetus for Dracula. Yeah. So this dude fought against the Ottoman invasion in Europe, giving continuity to the history started on Deme Quaden Theran, a track from their third studio album, Opus Nocturne, and which continued on with Dracul va Domini din Nu in Transylvania. From
the album Heaven Shall Burn.
Yeah.
We Are All Gathered. Yeah,
Latin names are fucking also hard. So Demiquadin Theran appears also here, rearranged with Legion's vocals and a little bit of a change in the lyrics at the end. They basically just re-recorded it, so to speak. And track 5 it's actually a hidden track, and it's not mentioned on the rear cover, but there are lyrics in the booklet. So basically, how it's divided into two chapters. Songs 1 through 4 is chapter 1. You have like the Dictionary Infernal, and songs 6 through 10 are chapter 2, and that's like the Warlord of Wallachia kind of storyline. And yeah, so the track that's missing, Nightwing, the title track, it's not part of either chapter. It's just kind of like a,
here's a cool song we did.
It could be that, or it could be just like a little like denouement of going in between the two. But the spoken word intro to Slay the Nazarene is actually taken from the 1973 movie The Wicker Man. Unfortunately, not the remake with the amazing Nicolas Cage. The bees! Oh my god.
Yeah. Step away from the bike as he like roundhouse kicks some like woman.
Anno Domini 1476 contains an excerpt from the Legionary Workers' March recorded by the fascist Romanian Iron Guard. This will lead into what we're going to talk about here in just a second, with fascist stuff, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, one last little thing here. The main riffs of Nightwing adapted from the score of the 1991 vampire film Subspecies. The lyrics are also based on the plot, and the artwork was by Belgian painter Chris Verwimp and Swedish artist Stefan Danielsson.
And this album cover looks fucking cool.
Yeah, dude. The band's clearly into like vampires and Satanism and your typical black metal stuff. Now, I guess we should finish talking about this record before we move on to the thing we want to kind of discuss here. But I think thematically it's a cool little story. I dig vampires, especially like old school vampires, like when you think about like the Crusades era and shit like that. Like that's fucking cool, man. So the story's got some like depth to it, and then when you put it with this style of music, it makes it sound like feel even more badass, I think. So Nightwing is a fucking criminally underrated album, like I said earlier. I think it still holds up. It easily holds up for 20 years, and Marduk is still putting out records to this day. So,
which, I feel like there's an elephant in the room, and we're gonna have to address it.
Yeah. This whole witch hunt that is currently going on in the metal scene from people like ANTIFA and SJ.
Well, that's also
SJW.
Well, let's not also beat around the bush. It's also the metal kind of journalist blogs. It's your Metal Injection. It's your Metalsucks.
Yeah.
These kinds of people that want to essentially appease to people that will never. Not only will they not listen to this music, but they won't even read your site.
Yeah, man.
Because they have zero contextual kind of understanding upon what's going on. Because right now, especially in American media, there is such a demand, the supply and demand problem that they have with racism. There is so much demand for it, but yet little supply.
You know, it's that, and it's just everybody wants to be outraged at fucking everything. I mean, Marduk specifically, they just got in some shit for fascist something, and like I don't think they were one of the racist ones. I could be wrong.
Yeah, but then again, at the same time, it's like, okay, this album came out in '98.
Yeah.
Where was the outrage then when this came out?
That's what I'm saying, dude. Like,
you're only outraged and, you know, trying to do something now just because it's fashionable to do so, and you can get clicks in order to be outraged.
Yeah, so these bands have been doing this shit for, you know, who fucking knows how long, you know, 20, 30 years. Yeah, okay, so Marduk, yeah, so they use a lot of Nazi imagery in their shit. They're not, like, outright using swastikas or shit like that. And apparently, you know, they have said some anti-Semitism shit in the past too. So,
but then again, it's also that's Europe.
Yeah,
and what goes on in Europe is different to what goes on in America. The amount of stuff that goes on in American music, whether it's like, you know, it's vulgarity of sex, it's vulgarity of violence, it's vulgarity of drug use, of gang life, that is to me far more like upsets my kind of sensibilities than, you know, oh, he said a mean word about a group of people.
I mean, yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's all bad, and like you shouldn't do that just because you know, don't be a dick.
Totally.
But yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, it's honestly, Slayer uses more kind of like overt, like, you know, World War II German era like symbolism in their music than Marduk does on the surface level.
Totally. Yeah, Slayer.
Like I remember going to school and I had the
thing.
Iron Eagle shirt. I had that. That was like my first metal shirt. That like I'd wore it. I'd be wearing that to school.
Yeah, but Slayer gets away with it because they're not black metal. They're not dangerous enough anymore, so to speak. You know what I mean? Slayer's like a household name at this point. Marduk is not. They're gonna take all the heat for it because they're an evil black metal band from Norway.
It's like we're trying to do that old bit again.
Yeah, this is the thing, is like the problem is now these bands are getting censored and their shows are getting canceled because of these Antifa fuckheads threatening violence, which the hypocrisy in that is so fucking astounding to me that the fact that they can't see it is just, I can't imagine how delusional they are. It's fucking ridiculous. Just because they use this imagery to they use it to provoke the exact thing of what those fucking assholes are doing by threatening violence. You know what I mean? But they're not doing it in an evil way. I don't think they're trying to do it in a hateful way. They're not trying to spread hate. You know, as far as I know, I could be wrong. Maybe they are trying to spread hate, and if that's the case, fine. That's fucked up too. But we can't sit here and crucify every fucking band that wants to use something from the Nazi era.
Well, it's not even about that. It's whatever they consider to be fucking far right, which is a term that doesn't even make fucking sense anymore. Yeah. Like, apparently, if you're to like the right of Hillary Clinton, you are essentially far right.
Yeah.
These days, and what makes the matter worse is the fact that the media, these, you know, as I said before, especially Metalsucks, fuck those people.
Yeah, I hate that
I'll
site,
fucking
dude.
call you out, even if we need to, like, you know, have to get, you know, like advertising through them. Fuck them. They will carry so much water for these people to have their own kind of agenda and to essentially isolate not only the kinds of people that, you know, not only bands that they would have looked at favorably and actually given interviews to, and actually wrote and actually advertised their albums on their sites 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden, just because it's fashionable, no, we're gonna not do it, and then claim that they've been against it the whole time. It's like, fuck you, you're a fucking weasel if you think that way.
Yeah, and it's not just Marduk. The reason we thought it was a good idea to talk about this is because Marduk was one of the more recent ones. They had their shows canceled. There's a whole slew of them. Watain was the most recent one. They had to fire their guitar player because a picture miraculously popped up out of nowhere of him doing a fucking Nazi salute. Which, don't get me wrong, that's fucked up. You shouldn't be doing pictures of Nazi salutes. But was it?
But then again,
was it a joke?
Like, even if it's a joke, like, okay, I'm sure there is probably a photo of me somewhere. If you just get a photo just right, it probably looks like I'm doing it, or it looks like you're doing it.
Yeah.
Am I going to have to let you go from the show because there's something like that?
Yeah.
Am I going to have to let you go because you're wearing like a Pantera shirt that has the Confederate flag on it?
No. And yeah, so the one person out of all these bands that I think rightfully got called out, though, to be honest, was the dude from Inquisition. That's another level of like fucked up if you're like child porn or whatever the fuck he did.
Yeah, like that's fucking evil.
Yeah, it's like it's your whole. Yeah, even then, it's like also you got like your Burzums as well, like Udvarg, LARPing in the woods, thinking he's like, like fifth political theory, survivalist, and then you've got like, that guy from Dissection, he's now dead. Yep.
I mean, you could just imagine what would be going on now. But then you'd also, but it's not only this; it's also anyone, even like with bands back in America, there was that whole kind of debate, or the whole kind of drama going on with All That Remains.
Yeah, just because Phil is like a gun nut and he's...
Well, no, I wouldn't even say he's a gun nut. He put out a video that says, like, look, this whole, changing what you think it is, it's a very complex thing. He described it as a very kind of nuanced thing. And then these same articles were like, well, he would love to see, like, fucking, kids get shot because he's a small dick fucking little weed of a man. I was like, Jesus Christ, like, you're in the media and you are trying... You're supposed to be like providing people with information. You go and act like fucking irrational children. You go and act like these Antifa fuckwits that think that violence is the way, and because I have money and an establishment behind me, I'm free to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And if it turns out that I'm wrong, well then it just won't ever be talked about ever again.
Yeah, and I just think that metal already gets enough shit as it is, and for these bands to be kind of like picked on, so to speak, I know it's not really a good word, good term.
Well, to be singled out,
yeah. And I realize like kind of our own hypocrisy in talking about this. It's like, oh yeah, they use Nazi imagery, they said some fucked up shit, but child rape, no, fuck that. And it's true. Everybody has their own personal line of what they're really willing to forgive. There's even people who still listen to Inquisition and will have. I've read the fucking comments of people like sticking up for that dude, and I'm just like, gross.
Yeah, it's like kind of like trying to stick up for the lost prophets.
Yeah, it's a fine line, man. But I think a lot of these bands are getting really unfairly targeted by people who don't even listen to the music. We'll never listen to the music, don't know shit about the bands themselves, the people, the genre, they don't know shit about heavy metal, but because they're like, Nazi, done. That's all they need to fucking light their spark, and then bam, that band's a fucking target. And then you have dumb motherfuckers like Talib Kweli coming in and being like, yeah, I'm not going to play shows unless bands stop booking these bands. Fuck you, dude. You're taking something away from me. How about I go boycott your shows and, Yeah,
it's like, what would you do if you had, like, a bunch of, like, people, like, protesting your show? You'd cry fucking racism at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, exactly. So it's fucked up, man. Like, I'm really, really tired of this shit. Like, every fucking day somebody's like, oh, well, this band did this, and now this band did this, and so on and fucking so forth. It's just like, they're looking for this shit now. They're not even trying to hide that fact. I think any chance that somebody's everybody's under a microscope. This is the problem now. Everybody's under a fucking microscope. You know, I was thinking too the other day, like, back in the early days of black metal, like, you know, they got caught burning churches and murdering people. But that's only, like, this is before the internet. So, like, they only got caught because they were so brazen and they did, like, the really big things. Think about all the little things that they did that never got found out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And
and
again, like, if you... Yeah, and you talk about again, and these are like largely European things with European kind of sensibilities. And when you go to European like music festivals, not that I've ever been, but like I'll have people that told me it's like, you know, yeah, you'll go to these things, and it's a collective of basically I don't know how to basically kind of try and describe this, but there's European things and then there's American things. And again, my kind of analogy to essentially the gangster rap in like the 90s, and even like gangster rap now, I don't know how much of it goes on now. I might just be kind of just uneducated and don't really follow, but it's like, yeah, all like the fucking murders and the drugs and the all that too. It's like, but everyone's okay with that.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Like I'm really. I don't know, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of all the, like, the targeting and just fucking outrage over shit that people don't even listen to or care about. Like, I know this sounds like really, like, you know, stay out of my thing. You know, I don't go to your thing and...
Yeah, I don't go into your thing. You shouldn't go into mine.
Yeah, but that's kind of how it is.
It's when... Yeah, and it's like, okay, if you've never liked Marduk from like day one because, you know, you saw this kind of like, you know, fascist or whatever, or things you didn't like in it, and you were vocally against it from day one, then, you know, that's fine. I've got, you know, hats off to you because you're actually fucking standing to your principles.
Totally.
But if you're kind of weaseling your way in and out of it, like a lot of people in you know, the metal kind of media and press are now, then you've got fucking caught essentially, and you're trying to backpedal.
Yeah, and I think too, people need to start learning to separate the art from the artist. But
yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you don't like fucking if you're such a you know respecter of women and you hate like domestic violence, and it's like, then why do you still listen to the Beatles?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you know, it's kind of shitty because like some people will use the argument like, well, even if you you know, can separate the art from the artist, by listening to them, you're still supporting their bullshit. Not really. It's not like I'm going to their shows. I'm not buying their music. You know, it's like I get on YouTube and listen to their album. Like that's not.
It's like I can understand. Yeah. Well, even if it isn't contributing, it's like, okay, you can understand that this is what someone did. It's like, yeah, you were talking about dissection. It's like, yeah, you can listen to those dissection music and still like it, but you can still know that, hey, that man is essentially a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, on a non-metal aspect too, like I love the Smiths, but Morrissey is a huge piece of shit. He's like an alt-righter, you know, racist.
No, I wouldn't even say that. He's basically someone that has like liberal views back from 1990, and because the overton window just shifts, it's a whole different thing. And
yeah,
we'll get into it. But basically later, because it's very important. Again, it's to call someone, again, it's anyone, as I said earlier, anyone that now has certain political opinions left to right to the most popular person at the current time in this current stage of whatever era we're in, and to call them an alt-righter is to like just absolutely miss the mark, and just to kind of label, and that kind of statement is basically the whole problem to this thing here. So I don't know. I don't know if it's. I don't like the idea of, you know, like language policing and you know, oh, make sure you do your research before, you know, you say something, because sometimes the emotional response that you have is probably the correct response. But I don't know. I feel like with accusations, it's be fucking vigilant before you go start tarnishing kind of someone's career, and it kind of really just ties everything all back to this, like I guess so.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, just fucking this kind of music brings people together.
Yeah.
And it's it's basically it spawned a friendship that basically crosses oceans. It forms a podcast. Like, people go to fucking festivals together and they camp out for days on end listening to this kind of stuff. It brought me closer with a lot of my mates that I didn't know listened to this at the time, like that I do now. And no matter where we all kind of come from, if we can at least, have at least one thing to talk about and have a shared kind of interest in, I think that can only be good.
Yeah.
And it kind of does well to kind of break down barriers. And that's basically where I'm going to leave it at. And the more kind of division that you want to basically sow within this, I hate using within people that like metal, because I hate using the word community. Mm-hmm. It can only lead to like negative outcomes. It's only going to probably lead more to this kind of stuff that you're accusing people of doing.
Well, I mean, yeah, and kind of one last little thought here on my end is it's causing shows to get canceled. So it's taking away something that we like to do to get us out of our daily lives. And then on the, well, not even on the flip side, the ripple effect from that is now you have bands that refuse to come to the States now because of this shit. Satyricon, this is going to be their last ever U.S. tour, and then they're never coming back after this because of all this shit going on.
Yeah, it's like, what have Satyricon done? From all accounts, they're like the nicest people.
I mean, they've had their little things here and there. They were part of like the early black metal scene. They didn't do anything too crazy, but they just don't want to get drug into it, and rightly fucking so, man. So, that's the ripple effect. Now you have bands not wanting to come to America, period. Or even bands that are in America don't want to fucking play shows now because they have to worry about their shows getting canceled or something happening, because of Antifa or whoever threatening violence, not just to the venues, but the people that go to them.
Work inside them as well.
Yeah, and that's such a dangerous precedent over music, man. Something that's supposed to I understand metal doesn't unite everybody, but our little group or whatever of people that enjoy it, that's why we listen to it, man. It's a weird point in the history of the genre, what's going on right now, and I hope that we can get past it. I hope that eventually we can look back on this and be like, yo, that was fucked up. That was a weird time, huh?
Yeah, and hopefully we can give it, and quite frankly, hopefully don't give in to the mob.
Yes.
Because metal's always been about, rebellion. It's just like, fuck you, we'll do what we want. It's music about fucking Satan.
Yeah, exactly. How serious can you take that shit, man? Come on.
Yeah, fucking, what's the matter with you?
Oh, hail Satan.
Yeah, though, I'll tell you fucking what, man. I'm probably going to be getting out of here soon. I think this is basically a good place to wrap this up.
Yep. One last thought. The new Dimmu Borgir album sucks dicks. Sorry. Had to say it.
Also, one final thought. New Parkway Drive album.
I haven't listened to it yet, actually. I'm gonna.
Pretty good. Different and weird, but different. But good.
All right. I believe it.
The songs that are bangers, and the songs that aren't.
Oh, man. That's not good.
They're just like they're there.
They're there, yeah.
Also, new Godsmack album. Yeah.
They're not metal.
I'm digging it, man. I'm digging it.
All right, guys. We're going to leave it at that. We hope that you, like Matt said, don't give in to the mob mentality. Think for your fucking self. Make your own decisions. Even disagree with us on this whole fucking thing. Tell us we're Nazis for liking it. I don't know. We just want to stop this weird thing that's going on.
Yeah. As long as you've come to the conclusion on your own and you haven't been coerced into doing it, fucking fine, whatever. I feel like I could then basically sit down with you and have a beer, and even though we won't agree with everything, we can basically come out the other side and respect each other's opinions.
Yep. And that's how it should be.
Exactly.
So, you guys know the drill. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can go to our website, heavymetalhistorypodcast.com. It's where you can find all of our episodes. Tell a friend about us. Get us more listeners, or if you,
Stuff.
really
And just
really
quite
though
frankly-
too, if you guys really do like the show and you're enjoying it, go to Spotify or go to iTunes, leave us a little review. I know we try not to hammer it too much, but it really does help us out a lot. Like, if we want to grow this thing to an even bigger level, like, those things help. It really does. So, but even then, seriously, thank you so much for all you guys who listen. It's fucking cool, man. I have fun doing this. I got a ton of feedback about the Matron Thorn episode. I think I already talked about that, but you guys dug the fuck out of it, and so did I. So thank you, everybody who listened to that, and definitely thank you to Matron for coming on. We have a sponsor for this episode that we're probably just going to edit in here, so you'll hear about that.
Please go pick that up.
Yep. And until next time,
be good to each other, and cheers, cunts.